all the attendees yesterday. I mean, we were satisfied that we were able to meet the expectations of the participants. And just as a kind of a very quick recap, session by session, we won't take much time because we just need to kick off with yet another awesome day ahead lying, which is waiting us. And I think the initial session which we are having, I'm extremely excited to be part of that session and hear all the experts speaking about it. We have all the esteemed panelists in front of us. But to give a quick recap of yesterday, we started with a fantastic opening ceremony. I think yesterday's dais for the opening ceremony was really worth its weight in gold. Barring minister who for the obvious, some exigency reasons, who couldn't make it, but otherwise, I think, but he was very kind enough that he did depute one of his secretary and he was able to deliver his message to all of us. But the panel was full and very appropriately, the theme of the opening ceremony was striking a chord with the net zero emissions. And I think all of us agreed that the situation has come to a level, if it's not today, it's never. So it's now or never kind of a scenario we are in. So we did have an excellent profile on the dais for the opening. And of course, after that, there was also very interesting, the lady, First Secretary, Commerce and Culture from High Commission of India, who did share, there's something called Panch Amrit. It's like Amrit in Hindi, in English is called nectar. Right, so it's like a 5 nectar principles what Government of India has set their ambitions for, and she did elaborate on those 5 principles and how India is trying to take a leadership position in renewable energy. And I think we are all aware that being one of the biggest democratic economy in the world, India has embarked upon a path. And talking about, for a country like India, the speed and the acceleration with which we are moving towards achieving those targets is really something which is catching the attention of the world. And slowly and steadily, the whole idea is that India will not only become self-reliant, it's called Atmanirbhar Bharat, that's a Hindi version, but it's called self-reliance. And along with that, India also wants to become a manufacturing hub for the South Asia region. And so that way we can look forward to, and this is actually the ground which is bringing us time and again back to Sri Lanka, because the very reason that we call it as a bilateral partnership, the whole idea is that the technology which lies in India, we are very happy through a delegation to meet Sri Lankan partners. And now yesterday through Minister's office, I also conveyed, one request that we would also like Minister of Sri Lanka, for renewable energy, to lead a delegation into our mother event, which happens in September, and we are doing it for last 15 years. It's Asia's largest event called REI, Renewable Energy India Expo, and so if that happens, trust me, it will open many doors of collaboration between the two countries. And I think the situation where we are in Sri Lanka today, I think it's like yesterday, we need to get independence from so much of a dependence what we have on external factors. See, the way the vagaries of nature is one thing, but the vagaries of humanitarian grounds, we are all witness to it, and where it's leading us to the depreciation of currencies, all that which is kind of glaring us at this point of time. I think our shift, a paradigm shift towards renewables is actually, it's no more a luxury now, it's no more a status symbol, it's actually has become a necessity now. So we kick-started with that wonderful session, and the second one, which I moderated, it was exactly on the bilateral partnership and what opportunities India and Sri Lanka can work upon to discuss on the global solutions. So it was like very aptly titled Mission 2022 and beyond, right? Because both countries are talking about, as much as we know, Sri Lanka is talking about 100% renewables by 2050, and so India is talking about net zero by 2070, and these are all the ambitious goals. Everybody understands, as an Indian, we also understand it's a very ambitious target, but the government has at least, given a kind of a, vision to it, and if it doesn't happen by that time, few years down the line, but at least we all will be on the right track. So this is more important, that we should put our foot forward on the track which will take us to clean and green and sustainable humanity. After that, there was a session on a very interesting session, 100% renewable in Sri Lanka by 2050 and reality check on economics. So we had few of the very esteemed speakers yesterday, and they were talking about that. Of course, we are talking about 100% renewables, but is it really possible, or do we have enough resources which will take us towards that direction? If not, then what else needs to be done? So all that deliberations happened, and of course, after that, we had kind of technical presentations by our sponsors, because everybody was bringing a new set of technology. They were wanting to talk about what are the USPs of their products, and for the attendees, it was a very, very engaging session. And we concluded with scopes, scalability, and success, which was between utility scale versus distributed generation. Once again, I think we had Mr. Kushan Jasuria who was moderating, and I was like really kind of amazed to see the way he was able to not only connect with the audience, but also with the panelists. And he was very instrumental in creating this discussion on which opened doors for floating solar. Because we all imagine that Sri Lanka being a, as we say, it's the pearl of Indian Ocean, and it's a beautiful island. So we have water all around. But how those reservoirs, how those areas of water bodies can be utilized for floating solar. So we had expertise from India, and we were all discussing for an hour and a half, what are the technological challenges of floating solar, right? And what policy measures are required so that India is also world's largest peninsula. So we have water on 3 sides. Sri Lanka is an island. So we have plenty of water around us. But how much of it is being used? Like, for example, India being peninsula, but offshore wind has not even touched India as yet. And onshore seems to be exhausted. Like, for example, Sri Lanka seems to be exhausted with the hydropower, right? I think every presentation is said that we have optimized, we have fully leveraged hydropower generation. So what next? If hydro is fully utilized, you have to find a new ways to reach the targets. Same problem with India. Onshore wind is almost the sites are fully utilized, and we have yet to embark upon offshore. So now the scalability of offshore is being discussed. So the delegations at our September event is coming from Scotland and from UK, because UK is our partner country for the show. And so they are bringing delegations. In fact, I am also probably will be traveling to that place because they have a hydrogen mission. And as we know, the country like UK, they have technical expertise on hydrogen, green hydrogen I might be referring to, and offshore wind. So we are trying to, because now the time for India also has come to unleash and leverage the potential of offshore wind. And again, once again, like solar, it's all about the economies of scale. Today, it's expensive, but more and more when you start getting into the installations, more power you generate, and definitely we all know that offshore, the outcome, the yield is much higher. So these are all the future technologies, and I'm sure today's day also we have tech talks after this wonderful session of doing business in Sri Lanka and what's the commercial guide, which we'll all be happy to hear from you. And please stay for rest of the sessions, which are again tech talks, the presentations. So multiple sessions are lined up till the day, and I'm sure it will be very, very interesting and very exciting and knowledgeable day for all of us. Thank you very much. And without further ado, let me invite Amit to pass the baton and take the day forward from here. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Thank you so much. So as Rajneesh said, without further ado, let's start with the first session of the day. The first session of the day, ladies and gentlemen, being Doing Business in Sri Lanka, Commercial Business Guide. We'll be touching on topics which are market demand, market challenges, customs, regulations and standards, selling international products and services in Sri Lanka, become a trade partner. The session is created to engage and network for mutual benefits, find effective collaboration between Sri Lanka entrepreneurs and visiting international delegation to find business partners, investors, customers and suppliers. May I please invite our moderator of the day, Ms. Rovani Fernando, Director, CP&I and Deal Strategy, PwC Sri Lanka. Rovani, please. May I please invite Dr. Priyantha Vijaysurya, Founding President, Solar Industries Association of Sri Lanka. May I please, Rovani? Yes. Dr. Priyantha, please. May I please invite Ms. Chandni Verapatya, retired Senior Deputy General Manager of the People's Bank, Sri Lanka, and former Director General of Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Mr. Kirti Gunawardene, Senior Vice President, FCCISL. Mr. Shirin Fernando, Chief Economist, Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Riyaz Sangani, CEO Vidyalanka PLC. Mr. Raja Edisurya, Chairman Board of Investment Sri Lanka, was to attend and he was to present the visionary address. But because of some unavoidable work-related matters, he could not. But yes, we have the opportunity of having Mr. Prasanjit Vijayatilake, Executive Director, Investment Promotion, Board of Investment, who would be presenting Mr. Raja Edisurya's address and joining us at the forum. Prasanjit, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please be vocal. If you have any questions to the forum, please raise it across and have a lovely session. Rovani, please. No, Rovani, would you be starting? Or? Okay, fine. Fine. Yeah. So can we have Prasanjit for the visionary address?
Oh, that's fine. Good morning, everyone. So I'll get the slightly lengthy speech out of the way so that we can get to the more interesting conversation with the panel. Good morning, everyone. And firstly, let me convey regrets on behalf of the chairman for his inability to make it today for an urgent work-related engagement that popped up last minute. So it gives me great pleasure to address you all as we start off day 2 of the Renewable Energy Growth Forum, Sri Lanka chapter. Now, as the Board of Investment, our focus on renewable energy is along 2 pillars. So first you have the investment side, obviously, and then the manufacturing side, because one of the sectors that we encourage, where we strongly encourage investment in, is in manufacturing, and manufacturing is strongly related to the energy sector, from the supply side at least. So let me first focus a bit on this manufacturing sector. Now, the manufacturing sector over the last decade and then some has been under a lot of pressure to literally to clean up its footprint. So there's a lot of pressure on manufacturers to look at cleaner ways of production. So cleaner production, apart from emissions and all these other things, one of the key factors of production that can benefit from the clean ethic is the energy you use or the source of that energy. Therefore, renewable energy has become imperative for most manufacturing industries, and they offer the most effective method to reduce not only energy consumption but your carbon footprint. Now, Sri Lanka is no different. This is a trend that has, like I said, it's been in existence over the last 10 plus years, and Sri Lanka is also moving in this direction. Our president has clearly mandated that by 2030, 70% of Sri Lanka's energy consumption will be from renewable energy sources. Now, give or take, if you look at the opportunity presented there, you're looking at around, because we do have a strong reliance on hydropower in our existing energy mix, you're looking at around a 30% headroom for growth, which represents about 4,500 megawatts of renewable energy sources that have to be sourced through greenfield investment. So therein lies the investment opportunity too. Now, as the BOI, we have been on board with helping existing investors to revitalize themselves as they maybe recalibrate some of their production processes to meet the exacting emission standards, let's say, or the green requirements that some of their markets require. Now, this is true of the European markets. And again, you see that a lot of other markets are also being sensitive to the source of energy and the carbon footprint of manufacturing. So we are helping these companies. I would say as far back as 2017, there was a board decision taken to allow any BOI enterprise, existing enterprise, to import equipment related to renewable energy. So the most commonly used product was solar panels. They were allowed to bring this in free of duty, simply because we understand that these organizations need to right-size themselves in terms of carbon footprint. So that's one side of it, the production side, where we want to be, the fact that we emphasize and we support the need and the drive towards clean energy in production. On the investment side, there's a number of incentives, because remember I mentioned they're looking at this goal of 70% by 2030. It's a rather ambitious ask, and they're talking big numbers in terms of the number of megawatts that need to be brought in. So that also means big investment in terms of the dollars that need to come in to do this, make this change, to facilitate this change. So there are tax holidays of up to 7 years for any project that is over 100 megawatts. There's any investment over $50 million, they are entitled to exemptions on PAL and CES. Then during the construction period or the implementation period of the project, you have exemptions from VAT. And even this applies to even some of the permitted items, construction items. So there are fiscal incentives that do impact your bottom line. Apart from this, there's also the accelerated depreciation allowance, which can be structured. So if you're not eligible, let's say, for a tax holiday, you can always look at, this is till 2024, this is applicable for any investment that is from the BOI's threshold, it's $500,000 a minimum investment. But from 2024 onwards, there will be a flow value of $3 million on investment. But for now, there is no flow value. And any of these investments are then eligible for what you call accelerated depreciation allowance or an enhanced capital allowance, whereby you double your depreciation over a period of up to 10 years. So there is can I say, recognition of the fact that you need to compensate the bottom line in order to make some of these projects feasible. And if you take a look at what's happening right now, end of last year, the CEB, which is the regulator and the monopolist for energy in Sri Lanka, they concluded a tender process for a couple of very big both solar and wind energy parks in the Uva province and in the northern province. These represent, to date, they will be the largest renewable energy projects to be rolled out. Evaluation is in process at the moment. And apart from this, we have around 150, close to 150 projects purely under the purview of the BOI, which contribute close to 600 megawatts of installed capacity to the national grid. And our pipeline, apart from the big mega projects that I just mentioned, we have close to another 10 projects being rolled out. So we anticipate that with Sri Lanka's renewable energy roadmap progressing, especially over the next 8 to 10 years, that we will see a lot of activity and investment in this sector. And with that, I hope I've given you an idea of where Sri Lanka is oriented, what the opportunities are, and to some extent the size of the opportunity. So with that, I'll bring my remarks to a close. And I hope that this is a productive session. I'm quite sure that given the experience of the panel you have here, that it will be quite an interesting conversation. And look forward to engaging with you all. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So good morning, everyone, and thank you to the panel members for being here. I think there are many subject topics that have been assigned to this panel, so we can get on straight away. So taking on from something that Prasanjit mentioned about the need to reduce the carbon footprint and make renewable energy and low cost energy a source of competitiveness for industries. Can I start with you, Shiran? And you have done quite a lot of work on SDGs as well. How can the use of renewable energy make Sri Lankan companies more competitive? What is the motivation to use this, and how does it contribute to achievement of SDGs as well? Can we start with you?
Thank you, Rooney, and thanks to the organizers for having me. I must say I'm not an energy expert, but more of an economist. But I think recently a lot of our work has been more on the sustainability side. A lot of the work that we're doing with donor agencies and also other partners has really been in terms of finding these opportunities on the sustainability side. And if you look at, from what Prasanjit said, I think if you look at the 17 SDGs, there is one very specific towards renewable energy and alternative energy. That's SDG 7, and 8, 9 also very much related to industry and the next steps that industry should also take. So clearly there is a global agenda, and I think the question is, how does Sri Lanka really fit into that, and how is our pathway to it? Of course, we have the 70% target, but we need the building blocks to kind of get there as well. And then when you look from even a climate perspective, I think we are put as kind of within the top 25 as one of the most affected from extreme weather conditions as well. So that is a big risk from a risk point of view as well. So I think those kind of highlight, even though we're a small island nation, there's a lot that we need to do. And that's also reflected, I think, in what we call the nationally determined contribution, the NDC's targets, which we first put out in 2016, and then I think last year as well we renewed it in the lead up to the COP16 discussions as well. So there also we've made a lot of commitments. So from the global, the policy kind of macro commitments, then it really boils down to what the private sector can really deliver. And here there is a lot of interest. So right now, the Chamber is engaged with the Sustainable Development Council in Sri Lanka, and of course with the UNDP. And UNDP has what we call an SDG Investor Map platform, which is globally, it's a global platform for investors to connect and find opportunities within 12 sectors. And renewable energy is one of those sectors. And countries like India, a lot of Latin American countries, African countries already, have put their interests and their opportunities there. And a lot of it is around the renewable energy space. Of course, there's a lot within the agricultural space as well. But those kind of highlight where the demand for the next generation of investment is coming. And Sri Lanka is also presently we are working on that map, and I think even within that. We do recognize to get to the NDC targets, to get to the 70% targets, there has to be a lot more investment on the solar side, on the wind side as well, and also on the EV piece, the electric vehicle piece as well, which I think relates to this sector. And here, I think the idea is right now, because of the import ban, I think the signals that we are getting from the policymakers is that once it is lifted, it could potentially be electric vehicles that is allowed. But is the infrastructure kind of ready to handle it? So therein lies another investment opportunity in terms of charging stations and battery storage and so on and so forth. So those are opportunities we are discovering, and hopefully once the map is out as well, that will maybe investors here and other investors, impact investors, private equity funds could come in and look at this particular area. So that's just on the investment side. And I think from the private sector side as well, if you look at our export basket, it's very much weighted towards products on the manufacturing side, like apparel. And here as well, I think the as Prasanjit mentioned, the demand is now, I think, in the last 15, 20 years, the focus from suppliers has been on labor and ethical labor and so on and so forth. And Sri Lanka excelled in that. And I think we projected a good image of Garments Without Guilt and other brands. But now it's going more towards the sustainability energy side. So can we, build a brand around that? And that really relies on us sourcing the manufacturing mix in terms of how these are produced as well. So I think to get to that, the private sector, of course, will need a lot more support. A lot of the companies are in the zones and outside. I think, they have kind of done the hard work, but maybe we need to kind of brand it a little bit better, and that might also help with the attracting or engaging better with our supply chain. I think a lot of the mid and the bigger firms are doing it, but I think the key for Sri Lanka's growth trajectory is if the SMEs can really have that accessibility and can we include them as well. And I think that's where the infrastructure needs to really come in so that the SMEs can plug and play. And when it could be manufacturing, it could be agricultural products, it could even be services, tourism. There's a whole ecotourism piece as well, which relies on the energy side as well. So it could really open up doors for SMEs if that piece comes right. So I think the linchpin of the economic trajectory will also be on this energy side as well. So just to conclude, I think, of course, the sustainability piece is very important with what's going on globally. The investment piece is crucial, but also from businesses and finding opportunities and sustaining it, I think the private sector and particularly SMEs will need to be included in this journey. Otherwise, they might also be kind of left behind as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Shiran. So just from a investment perspective that affects the private sector, and if any other panel members have views, please add in as well. I will take up a question from you, Riaz, on the producers or the industry that is involved in generating. So as we move towards this 70% target, where do you think the new investment areas would be, apart from creating new power plants, of course? There is the associated infrastructure that needs to come into place, the battery storage that needs to come in, upgrades to the grid, and other areas of associated infrastructure. So where will these investments go into? What is the sort of total picture you see when the industry evolves towards greater renewables?
Thanks, Rini. So, from what I understand, you're asking me which direction the industry is going to move. So, renewable energy in Sri Lanka historically has been lot on hydropower, but I think we have now all the sites are developed, very little can be added, and also the hydropower is becoming more expensive than solar. So, I think the future will be on solar, because and also wind. I think those are areas which can grow. There are other renewables like biomass and things, but I think those will be difficult because of other constraints like land and all that. Even for solar, there's an issue about land, but maybe land will be an issue, but maybe it can shift into floating solar. And wind also will have an issue about land acquiring, because Sri Lanka has a very limited land space. So we may have to look at offshore. Now both these have still not, floating solar and offshore has not happened in Sri Lanka, but if we are to go for this 70% renewable energy target, definitely we'll have to start looking at how to develop those skills and moving towards that. But of course, I think the skills can be acquired because it's been done on many parts of the world. All depends again what sort of profitability of this business. Now, most of the private sector is only actually driving the renewable energy space, and they are going to invest only if they are going to make money. Leaving other things of sustainability, clean energy, there is attraction, but anyway, end of the day, it's a money talks, because if not profitable, nobody is going to invest in it. So we'll have to see what sort of a tariff we can obtain. And then if those are profitable, I think those industry will open up. Also, while the profitability is there has to be some way to facilitate faster approval process, less bureaucracy, So those things have to come in. Then I think the industry will start growing in those areas, and that can help. I believe very strongly that that will help to get to the 70%. And I think today, where the way things are all over the world, with oil prices gone up, Sri Lankan rupee depreciated, I think there's a lot of economic reasons to move towards renewable energy, because renewable energy definitely can be much more cost effective than fossil fuels. And today we have seen last few months how the coal prices have increased. There are many reasons to it, but with that sort of a coal prices, I think the producing energy through coal is going to be far more expensive than renewable energy. So I think the renewable energy is here to stay, it will grow, and in that renewable energy space, I think the wind and solar will dominate. And in Sri Lanka particular, I think we may need to look at floating solar and offshore wind because other limitations of the land. I hope I answered your question.
Thanks, Riaz. If I can also come to Mr. Gunawardena from representing the Federation of Chambers, from a chamber perspective, what are your members seeing, both producers as well as consumers of power? What are their needs and what are their sort of challenges and what are the areas of importance?
From the chamber point of view, what we think is, and of course, as far as we have a different kind of members, from smaller to micro, large, all kinds of members are there in the federation. Of course, we have member chambers. They have separate, like specialized member chambers representing different sectors, like printing or any other area. And similarly, the small and medium, lot of businesses involved, chambers also involved. So this is something very interesting for them. But as we discussed up to now, these of course, it's not a very easy thing for a smaller business to invest. Now, solar is something very good for businesses. From the business sense, if you take, say, if I am a manufacturer, I have this personal experience also. If I use, the economical, sustainable energy sources, or I can bring down my carbon footprint and I can be carbon neutral, then we have advantage over our selling against another person in the world market. So this one area. But only thing is, when it comes to the small and medium sector, this is very important. The government or the bankers and they should give some support with good low interest financing. But as far as if you take a simple example, if you want to do solar on your roof, you can recover your cost in about 5 to 6 years. But still, that investment, affordability is available with few people. They have already done it. That's how the Colombo more users and outstation less users. But when it goes to industry sources, the same thing. That I want to do one of my factories solar roof, but of course, we wanted to start late. One, of course, we have already done. There also we found, all the approvals were given and all that, then the COVID situation created. So after that, most of the funding available with the banks is gone. Now, this is something that we have to immediately start, and low cost funding is required. If you take the World Economic Forum roadmap up to 2050, they say these big investment, they say it's if you want to go for zero, so that means trillions of dollars has to be spent over that. So therefore, what is important is, as from the Sri Lankan perspective, this gentleman at the opening session mentioned, a nice word, cleaner production. So as manufacturers, we have been originally doing cleaner production. This is an improvement of that. Actually, if you can bring down the cost, your carbon footprint, then eventually you will have better business model which you can sell in the global markets. So therefore, what is important in Sri Lanka right now is to have low cost funding for this kind of thing, and motivation for the small and medium industries also for them to get into this area and get benefits out of their products when they try to sell in the global market.
Thank you, Mr. Gunawardena. Just a follow-up question on that. So you said rooftop solar, the initial investment is quite high, and then the recovery period is a fairly reasonable period. When it comes to facilitating the third parties to do rooftop solar, I believe there was a scheme that was in operation. Is that still applicable, and is it working effectively, Ms. Gunawardena? Where third party could use a rooftop, and there was a tri-party agreement that could be entered into with CEB, right?
But we also checked with different people, so it seems to be not really working and getting the real benefits. I don't know the reason. Actually, we have not gone into detail, but looking at the information available, I do not think it's very successful. But if that also to make a successful project, then some initiative has to take from the government, some kind of regulations, approval process has to be shortened and faster. So that has to happen, I believe.
Can I add something on that? Yeah. I'll add something on that because I have some experience. I have also done it where the investor rents the roof and puts on the solar panel, so the roof owner might get a revenue share or a rental, and the investor gets a return. At the moment, it is happening, but of course, there's a issue. I think there's a fair amount which has happened and will happen, but there are few constraints. If it reduces, maybe it can be done at a bigger scale. One of the issue is we have the tri-party agreement, but issue happens is that the investor who's putting on the panels cannot invoice to CB. Right? It is the roof owner who has to invoice it. So somewhat circumvention is done where the investor creates his own invoice, but the CB allows the money to go to any account which the roof owner subscribes. So there is a little bit of a tax hitch there. If the investor is allowed to make a direct invoice, it will actually help with because there are certain VATs and all those things, so it will make it easy. But people have found a way around it, but it's not very above board. So if the investor is allowed to make the invoice and submit to CB, it will help with the accounting and the tax regulation. Then, Mr. You mentioned about this low-cost funding. Yes, definitely that helps with the investor returns, and the returns only drives the business because as investors, anybody will look at the return if the returns are good. But of course, I will understand the banks will also have a limitation in giving low-cost funding. They will also have a cost. But I think there's something else we could do to incentivize investors by where the financing is going to get structured. But now all this project, one of the key things we use to decide whether the investment is giving adequate return, we use an indicator called IRR. I think some of you will have done accounting or the finance will understand it. And there what we are doing is seeing what is the return over the life of the project. Not an annual return, you look at the life of the project. You work out the IRR. Now this IRR, and everybody who is investing will look at IRR, okay, they will have a benchmark, either 14%, 15%, something like that. And when you do that calculation, if the financier or the bank or the debt fund can give a longer tenor, the IRR improves, can have 2-3% difference. And also, if they can banks can give a longer grace period, then also the investor's IRR will improve. So then he will be motivated to invest more. Now I can give you example. I have done some project in Uganda, in Africa, and I'm getting my project refinanced from a fund in South Africa, Emerging Africa Investor Fund. They are giving me 3 years from the tail. What they mean is, if the PPA is signed for 20 years, up to 17 years repayment I get. And if I compare with the Sri Lankan bank, which might give me maximum 10 years, the difference in IRR on all that can be easily to 2 to 3%. So while I see the low cost funding is attractive, but I see it's an imitation. But I think for the banks, of course, they may have risk issues, but investors.
I think we can have a follow-on question for Mrs. Verapitiya, since you were in the banking sector and we have come to an important component of doing business in Sri Lanka in terms of financing. Maybe for the benefit of everyone, Mrs. Verapitiya, you can say typically how project loans are structured for these sort of renewable energy projects. What are some of the successful financing schemes that we have had in Sri Lanka? And what more is coming up in the future?
Good morning to you. Critical situation that I faced right now after seeing these presentations. The bankers are saying that the funds are over. Then somebody used that funds. Majorities are saying that there's no such funds. But as a bank, I'm saying all the bankers have funded under refinance schemes got from the ADB. The funds are over now, which means people have used that. It was at the rate of 3%, initiated very effectively by NSB. It was 3 to 3.5% for consumers, and the People's Bank too at a very, very low rate, 4.55. Once the funds are over, they'll have to use their own funds, which means that they'll have to raise funds by using your deposits, which they normally term for 8%. Then the rate should be at least 10%. So we'll have to understand that in three perspectives they have funded: for households and industrial purpose, again for the investors. Investors also got at a very, very low rates. Example, Senok, wind power. People's Bank have funded that. And again for industries like Orange, they have 200 kilowatts they use. Unfortunately, due to this power cut, they are in a hell of a problems. Lot of investors. And consumer perspectives, they use. Sometimes most of the bankers went out of this thing and gave by using the credit card, which means the 0% interest. You don't believe? I've seen enough and enough examples for that. 0% interest. Touch that Sampath Bank, NDB, NTB, commercial for a certain period, People's Bank, 0%. I think the funds are over, I don't know. Funds are over. Why? The demand is such huge. And the other thing, when I come to your issue that you raised, the investor point, I have bad experience where after getting the approval from the CEB, the investor went there and collected the approval. I was searching for the document that was taken by the investor. You see the other way around. There's no such a proper management schemes for these things. That's the problem. I was searching for more than 2 weeks who got that approval. It's my one. Later on, I found that was taken by my customer, my supplier. So those are the things that as she clearly mentioned, that we have enough packages under commercial terms and under refinance terms, and with easy repayment methods, no security at all or minimal security. And the tenor go up to maximum 10 years that have been restricted by ADB because the lifetime of the solar is not more than 10 years, I hope, though 25 years warranty is there under performance. That's what they term those things out with the maximum tenure of 10 years. What else that you want to hear from me?
No, I think we are fine. Thanks, Mrs. Verapitia. Coming to you, Dr. Priyantha. Again, I'm going to go back to some of our earlier questions. As we move towards renewables, there's going to be considerable investment that goes not only into generation, but into all the associated infrastructure and so on. What is the potential for Sri Lanka to do some of these fabrication and inputs and so on locally? Do you think there's opportunity, or is it mostly going to be an import-dependent situation to bring in the necessary equipment? What is your view on that?
Thank you. On the issue of value addition or local fabrication, which is a must for any progressive industry, like I was saying to you before, we came here, and that is the value addition has to reflect from all angles of the manufacture. So to start with, we are having a renewable energy equipment that will function in a modular mode somewhere in the corner of a country or somewhere. That has to come adopt the international specifications that has been cast on that particular branch of the renewable energy equipment, like solar or mini hydro or whatever. So we are talking about a value-added product that has to be made by value-added men, if you like, or well-trained men. So the value addition has to start from the human resource aspect to start with. The people who, because Sri Lanka can boast of a rich culture of our level of worker skills, literacy rates and so on, being able to communicate somewhat in English, and senior workers can do that well as we see. So human resource development and training of workers, just like in the garments, clothing industry, as it has already demonstrated to be, has to also come into. So, but Sri Lanka hasn't really, to start with, we do not see much of value manufacturing base set up here in the first instance, except around the 1990s. There was a company called Power and Sun for solar panels, which was put up by a former president's grandson, two more guys who I knew. The panel factory was running for a few megawatt facility, just to see how our culture works here. And after some plastics and importers complained to the Treasury Secretary, the minister of that time, with a stroke of the pen, just brought the plastic tax to such a level that the local assembly factory wasn't profitable. So with a stroke of pen, there's such a disparity of gap between the policymakers and the industrialists. So the total lack of awareness of the need to value add and to retain jobs, retain family welfare through the jobs was totally ignored. So that's happened to the Suntex factory, which I personally know of. So having learned these lessons, we need to look at value addition all over. But I see this whole thing like it was displayed to us very, very so obviously how much we have become servants of this energy supply, this reliability route now. Look at the past few weeks, power cuts. We curse the time when it approaches the power cut time. We get ready for it. It's a bad news thing. So we have become so dependent on the power being delivered by a wire. Obviously, there are technologies that give decentralized reliability through renewable energy systems, which are there. For us to bring all these things, then we have to go into investment, sturdiness. So what I see is we, just like in India, which has become a demonstrable location where all these assets are, Indian industry is so strong, the way I understand, compliments to you guys, no matter which prime minister comes to power, our chief minister is in reign, the industry, the federation, the clusterized activities, they will not bend their rules. They have their forward march well planned, and we can take a cue from India so that well-principled policy, coming back to human resource development as well. There are a lot of German engineers, British engineers training the staff there. So we don't see that much of action here. I think the banking front, this is not a place for me, as far as I'm concerned, to speak about these small nitty-gritties about lending rates, back-to-back financing, CBSL rate to, backdoor, hedging the foreign loans and giving credit, all that should be part and parcel of a working session. But I'm looking at the macro structure, that our fronts all led by chambers, we should not be ready to blame the politicians. How can they know? A politician becomes a local MP, comes to a region, then he becomes a parliament, then he's supposed to be the minister of power. Right? It's a nightmare, really, if I were to get through that route. So I think our strength of our industry, the pillars of success and strength of the industry should be the Chamber of Commerce, Federation, our own associations, our solar industry, mini hydro, micro hydro association. We should be so more forceful like the Indian, our friends have been. And that getting together is the first step. Because you just go reminiscence back a few weeks ago, you don't want power cuts. You don't want to be holding the cans outside the petrol stations. But we did. We're still doing it. So end of the day, I think value addition, local value addition, there's a great deal of homework, mileage to be covered to get there, but we can do, because we are all like-minded, and nothing like illustration cast on yourself, which is power cuts, the dreadful long stays in the dark, cannot start the computers, and various other innovative ways we think of. So we can do that, but now just to touch on another small thing on the keeping our eyes on the policy things. Someone here mentioned about, I think it was Riaz who started, about say roof programs. Now roof programs, there are two types. There's this household roofs which teachers, doctors, all these guys put up. And you have the industrial roofs, and thankfully the tariff rate has stayed to retain the industrial interest. One area I was mentoring 2 or 3 companies to install solar roofs. They went and got all these CB, go ahead, start tomorrow, what's called the shovel-ready letter. Go start tomorrow. We went through all the electrical service. CB engineers came to this industrial factory. Actually, I was dealing with some, my men were dealing with some rice mills, rice manufacturing. And they were all ready to go. The external third-party investor was there from Dubai or some other place, a couple of them. I actually found some of them. And when we went to the bank, it was, I think we went to, with this lot, we went to NTB and to Bank of Ceylon. And the banking policy is no loans for these projects. The argument from us is it's all past the protocol, electrical survey, everything. But they said, but the roof owner, industrial roof owner, is in the crib over some other dealing it too. So because he's in the crib, the gazette which was passed by Honorable Finance Minister some months ago, his advisor did not take cognizance of these things. So the regulation did not, leave out the crib part of thing which was cast on the roof owners. They actually were treated with the same scope, no financing, because bank sees that as a risk. So whoever, he's in the crib. As a broad scale, one glance look for the banks, and so unfortunately, I could not hold these investors anymore. There are about 25 megawatts, small things adding up. It was a shame that we could not do that because they were in the crib and they had taken their, machinery expansion loans, all that. And with the COVID, they could not service those obligations. And at the same time, Ceylon Electricity Board was allocating the actual demand in KVA for the roof in terms of production 6 months average, and COVID times 2 years no production. So they were given all 30 kilowatt roof connections, whereas those roofs, the massive roofs, they qualified easily 400 kilowatt roofs. So while the roof owner was willing to give his roof for production, and when there was an investor, the banking constraint stopped that side, and the roof was. So these are the things we had to all get together have a common message and have our own policies cast and have those passed. Now the other one is like the batteries. I think we were talking about batteries, yes. The battery tariff, I haven't yet seen that in the newly published tariff set. No battery tariff. Now then, why talk about battery policy? Why talk about after 5:30 p.m. sun goes down, then battery comes over, we should be ahead like in India, or even look at Australia, is doing great marvels in battery technologies. We can't even make a first step forward because the tariff is not announced. So how can you build a integrated renewable energy? Because renewable energy is all about integration of various time of day technologies together. It's one technology cannot normally support. Sun goes after 5, yeah. Then wind is almost all over the place, 24 hours, but then 2 monsoons confine it to that levels too. Mini hydro, you have the dry and wet. So we are talking about hybrid systems. Now, hybrid systems require various tariff regimes to kick in the daytime. But when it's not supported by a storage tariff, which can be brought in by a battery or otherwise, then you have a dead wall right there. So these are the things. So I'm here to point out these issues in terms of our need to get together. My message to the Bankers Institute, if you are going to do your banking, go home and look at the economics, how much you pay, which we all do. But look at getting together and bring these as your agenda items in Bankers Institutes. Bring in the renewable energy proponents to your luncheon meetings, various Rotarians, whatever, and build up a national spirit and move forward as one group, like our neighbors have been successfully been able to do. So I think you would have got a little bit of my thinking there. Thank you. And the last thing I want to say is clean production. Now we have formed a organization called Solar Full Cycle, SFC. Solar goes full cycle, comes back. So our motto, which I will show, maybe hopefully if I get a chance to do that, is that if you ain't into solar cycling, do not even bother to call solar eco-friendly if you are not recycling. Now the clean technologies, apart from the production cleanliness, the materials you start have to be clean enough that if more the recycling which that material has come through is more cleaner. What I'm saying is, instead of digging into the earth's core and getting silicon out more and more, if we can bring in a culture of recycling the world over. In India, there are progress around this matter. In Australia, in other places too, but it's very slow. But clean production can not just be being energy efficient on the line and not wasting energy, power factor corrections and all that. Clean energy is also be able to sing the theme of recycling into wind turbines. In America, Amazon, whatever wind turbine, the waste has become such a major problem to recycle. They're so cumbersome, you have to, then they don't rot. Solar cells, when they waste away after 20 years, what we call EOL, end of life, is the cadmium, which is necessarily a tissue poison, and aquatic waters that enters it, then you have lead, nerve poison. So all these things, when dumped, And at this moment, most of the regions of the world, we are inclusive Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, for waste, we are for renewable energy, which we are installing at we have 450 solar roofs now. We are going up to about 2,000. That's how the policy looks like. But that much, the screening process, would you believe it? Central Environmental Authority, when you make a large solar application, they also don't, either they do not know it, but the system basically hides behind the waste management law of the country and do not have a doubly electrical and electronic waste management policy around it. In other words, you can't just use the country's waste law to deal with certain very, very toxic material. They can be brought back to the production flow. That's also, waste, recovery. So I hope I gave some thoughts. So
yes,
that's all right. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Priyantha. Prasanjit, coming to you and the Board of Investment, I think there are a lot of, in emphasizing manufacturing as one of the sources to attract FDI, you also have many plans in place to develop a lot of new industrial zones, right? And looking at the energy requirement of these zones, what is the general sort of engagement and thinking on how these zones can have more cost-effective energy sources? Is that something that has been considered?
Well, yeah. The cost effectiveness in terms of energy, in an ideal world, we'll have zones with captive energy, but that roadmap is a little tricky to navigate in this country. Having said that, the lower hanging fruit there is obviously the rooftop solar installations for factories, and there has been a significant amount of interest and I would say a fair rollout that we have observed. Like I said, we took that board decision in 2017. It was based on, let's say, a certain amount of lobbying that came from the industrialists themselves. And then obviously once you do the math, it does make sense that it is one of the quickest ways that they can not only be a little cost efficient in terms of their energy, but also the clean or the green footprint or the carbon footprint, the green energy focus. So yes, we have seen that interest and we continue to encourage that as well. And I think more than our encouragement, as I'm not sure who mentioned it today, but market demand is such and the operating costs are such, it's almost a no-brainer, the fact that the companies will keep looking at, and I think we just spoke about the power cuts we experienced in the last couple of weeks. We found that the guys with rooftop installations were actually able to run shifts at a closer to normal operating level compared to those who didn't, because as was mentioned, there was also a fuel shortage for the generators. So your backup power was also not at 100%. So I think with this experience, we will possibly see more industrialists actually turning to solar and renewable energy.
Since we have just about 10 minutes left, if I can ask Riaz and Kirti to comment on the top three regulatory and approval related issues that you think will need to be addressed by CEB and the authorities and the government and the private sector working together. What are the top three priorities to address to get this show on the road virtually? From both of you, if we can hear as private sector.
You put me on to stops because we have top officials from CEB also here, so I have to be a bit diplomatic. I think the first priority, I mean, if you're talking to drive investment, is a return, and the return is fundamentally tied to what's the tariff you get. Of course, cost is also important, but the tariff you get. Now in Sri Lanka, we still have we've had a feed-in tariff, a published tariff, and if somebody sees, okay, at this tariff I can make money, he tries to develop the project subject to getting all the approvals and the locations sorted out, all that. But that was done away with a couple of years ago due to, of course, there's a big debate on that. There was a change in the act and there's a big debate, so I don't think we have time for that. So anyway, that feed-in tariff system was done away with, and we started going for tendering, and CB started tendering. For solar, there has been movement, there have been some projects which have come up with it, but if we are, my personal view, is that if we are to go for this 70% renewable energy target, I think we may need to look at back at the feed-in tariff, because most of the growth came in during the feed-in tariff era. Because it gives certainty and predictability to the investor. So that drives investment, and also unfortunately what happens with tendering is a lot of undercutting happens. And there are people who are not well experienced in industry, wants to get in, they undercut, then they take licenses but unable to develop, and then sometimes the cost structures change, they can't go ahead. So my belief is the first regular change will be to get into a feed-in tariff scheme. Now if you look at the example of rooftop has a feed-in tariff, and we have seen the tremendous growth last few years. I think all the targets were surpassed. The target they had done, the Surya Bala Sangrahame, was surpassed. I think by 2019 they were looking at 100 megawatts, we ended up 200 megawatts. So feed-in tariff gives that predictability which drives, but of course it has to be attractive, because investors have other opportunities and they will invest only if they make money. But I think it can be also allowing them to make money, and I think as an industry it can be profitable, because renewable energy can be done at a cheaper price than what is today at fossil fuel. So I think the first regulatory would be to get that sorted out. Then I think the other issue would be the lands. Getting lands in Sri Lanka is very cumbersome, very long process. Of course, there is reasons to it, but maybe some level of fast tracking of it have to be done. And others are the approvals, which I think are not necessary, where you have to get local governments, provincial. Some of them are not statutory. Now, say for example, you have the District Development Council. You have to go and get the approval. Those are not statutory bodies, but still you need to do, because they are powerful politicians. So if you ask me the top three, I think those three will need to be handled to move the industry. But having said all that, I think with this, at a higher level, we have a high policy target as a country, at the highest political level, there's a target of 70% renewable energy, and I think that's a very good thing, and that could drive, and I see big opportunity for investors for that, because there is economic sense also to it. The target is not without any value, it has. So I believe there is a lot of opportunity in the next few years, and for us to get to 70% renewable energy, there is a huge amount of megawatts needs to come up. So and I feel there will be a lot of funding required, equity required, and also debt required to go to that target. So I see a big opportunity for all the businesses to get into it, and there is a hope these three regulatory issues can be sorted out. Then I think there could be a fair return, and I see big opportunity in this industry.
I think Riaz addressed most of the technical areas. So let me also say, now Sri Lanka is a country where when people come to retirement, they take all the money and deposit in a institution where they give the highest interest. Finally, that organization closes, and they lose all the money. Now these same people, their money can be utilized for solar roofs. Sometimes, they can do a bigger one and supply to the national grid certain amount of power. But only thing is, the government has to ensure if there is excess supply, they get the money. So then that is there. I will take an example in Netherlands. Actually, when I went to Netherlands, I found, so many all over you get wind power units. I asked one of my friends, whom we have been working together for a long time, I asked why so many solar, the windmills. He said, Kirti, we have a tendency, most of the guys, when they come to retirement, according to the money that they left, they do about couple of units. they said, until they die, they get a very stable return on investment. So every month, they get. So these are the things that, Sri Lanka also has to adapt. But only thing is, the unpredictability in Sri Lanka, for us to, bring a policy and, to ensure that government also will come and pay that money. So if we can do that, I'm sure that looking at the numbers, the people who has invested on some of the companies and lost money, so that money has gone for solar. So that would have been a huge impact on Sri Lanka. And the other thing Dr. mentioned, Dr. Priyantha, the policy issues. As chambers, we are working together in most of the cases now. We also realize that, different chambers, they have different specialties. But for national issues, we have to come together. We have realized in this issue now, we had a joint chamber and, some of the proposals we put forward was quite successful. So it has happened within a short time. I think, going together is a bigger strength. Of course, the chambers don't have the resources on separate sectors. So therefore, the industry and the chambers has to come together and make proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirti. I think we just have 1 minute or 2 minutes left to go. Amit, if I can borrow 2 minutes to see if there are any questions from the audience that anyone would like to pose to the panel. We have time for about 2 questions, maybe. Yeah.
I have a question to Mrs. Virapitia. So, given in the previous few years, actually, Ceylon Electricity Board is losing money every year and have a very bad performance on their income statement. And it is very foreseeable that maybe in the coming years, they still have a very bad performance because their generation cost is higher than their selling rate. So my question is, how do you look at, how in a bank perspective, how do you look at the credibility of CEB's financial status? And is it still be the best rate level agencies in Sri Lanka? And although it's in a very, maybe not very financial sustainability situation.
Everything depends on the appraisals that the bank consider. I think for such a situation, if you want to fund more for this renewable energy matters, I think we may have to have a low-cost deposits and as well as huge sort of refinancing lines, matches with the fulfillment of the requirements. So better keep silent at this moment for that, because there should be a policy. We'll have to initiate some static policies also for those things. Sorry.
Thank you. I think that's more policy-related question we have to address at a broader level. I think our time is up, and just to add on another point, I think on low-cost sources of financing, you may have different sessions that come up later in the day. But I believe there was an announcement made in the budget of the government last year that Sri Lanka would be looking at green financing opportunities, and I think that discussion is on. The bankers and the central bank have initiated that. So I'm sure you'll hear more about it in the next few sessions that are taking place as well. So with that, I think since our time is up, we will conclude, and thank you very much to all the panelists.
Just a minute, Riaz. Riaz, just a second. So I would like to thank the panel. Thank you, Rovni, for setting up such a nice panel. We have a token of appreciation from our Taylor and Francis, a publication house which is part of Informa Markets. And I would like to call upon Mr. Rajneesh Khattar, Senior Group Director, to please pass on the token from our side. Mr. Riyaz Sanghani, CEO of Lanka. Thank you so much, Riyaz, for being here. Mr. Kirti Gunawardene, Senior Vice President, Federation Chambers. Ms. Chandni Virapatya, retired Senior Deputy General Manager of the People's Bank. Mr. Prasanjit Vijaytilake, Executive Director, Investment Promotion, Board of Investment. Ms. Ruvani Fernando, Director, CP&I and Deal Strategy, PwC Sri Lanka. Thank you so much, Ruvani. Dr. Priyantha Vijaysurya, Founding President, Solar Industries Association of Sri Lanka. Thank you so much, Doctor. Mr. Shirin Fernando, Chief Economist, Ceylon Chambers of Commerce. Thank you so much, Shirin. Shirin, can we have the mask off only for a second? Thank you. Thank you so much, Ravni. Thank you so much for the panel. Can we have one quick group photograph, please? Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, we're sorry that we're running a little late, but the next session is a very interesting session. What we have, the session is going forward, technology that matters. And we will have, it's one of the most interesting sessions, and I would request to please take your seats and enjoy the session. Farad, can we have the tables done? As to align with the utilities mission. We have Lanka Electricity Company being represented by Dr. De Silva, the General Manager. May I please invite him on the stage, please? Dr. Silva, please. We have Ceylon Electricity Board being represented by Mr. Rohan Senivratne, Additional General Manager. Mr. Rohan, please. We have Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority being represented by Mr. Harsha Vikramasinghe, Deputy Director General. Mr. Harsha, please. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause, please? Getting these three gentlemen at one dais is such a pleasure for all of us. And for that, can I please invite Mr. Julian Thomas, Project Director, to hand over a token of appreciation from our side before we start the session.
Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Dr. Silva, General Manager, Lanka Electricity Company Private Limited. Then you have Mr. Rohan Senivratne, Additional General Manager, Ceylon Electricity Board. Mr. Harsha Vikramasinghe, Deputy General Manager, Deputy Director General, Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority. Thank you so much, Julian. May I please invite Dr. Silva for his TED Talk? Would that be a TED Talk, Doctor? Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. And it's a pleasure addressing this forum. I had been addressing this for some time, and thank you very much for inviting me this time as well. I always see this forum as a very vibrant and knowledge-sharing forum. And probably out of most of the forums that we address, this is sort of a practical and a vibrant forum where the industrialists, utilities, and parties involved into the development of renewables get together. So I must congratulate the organizers. Having said that, I'll straight away come to the technology part of the story. First of all, we got to understand that every energy supply relies on a certain storage. If it is fuel, then you are looking at moving fuel from one storage to the other. Equally, if you look at any of the energy systems, it goes from point to point storage. But electricity, our traditional electricity grid and our traditional electricity generation was planned and operated in such a manner that we don't have a storage. It is simply because that electrical energy could not be stored in large quantities for the time that we were looking at designing this grid. So always what we were doing is, moment you convert it to electricity, you got to straight away deliver it to the demand. Or we got to generate what is being demanded. We cannot store electrical energy, or at least we couldn't. Because of that reason, what we did was, we had fuel storages. So, but the storages we were looking at was fuel. So in Norachole, we got a coal storage. But moment that coal is being converted to electricity, you don't have a storage, you got to straight away deliver. So as far as electrical engineers are concerned, our domain, we didn't have a storage. So this is how the traditional network was being planned. So if the network got to be served continuously, then we got to design this grid in such a manner that we have that class of reliability. But now what happens is, if you go into the deep technology and see, what it happens is that we are coming with more and more renewables, and that is our future, no matter what. So once when we are looking at the renewables, we don't have that fuel storage. Our generation is not continuous. So solar power, when the sun shines, you get solar. Moment that a cloud covers, solar drops. So we don't have that class of reliability at our generation. So what are we going to do? This is a fundamental question what all the electrical engineers all over the world today keep on iterating, because our traditional way of looking at this problem is now thoroughly being disrupted. So there are several solutions for this. If you refer to NREL studies over the last 5-6 years, they are looking at a possibility of developing an intermittent grid. So they are seeing that, okay, our generation is intermittent, let our supply also be intermittent. So you will have electricity, or if there are predictions, if we are going towards that particular end, probably our children's time, the electricity supply will be intermittent. There may be short drops, or probably 1 hour, half an hour drops of our power supply. But the way how we design our houses, our consumption will remain constant. How we will have storages within the house, just like our water supply. Now water supply, every house got a water tank. So if that you dismantle your water tank and expect the water supply authority to continuously give you water, that you will have kind of a issue, or the water supply board will have an issue. They will have to have their storage in order to supply that continuous supply. So one direction the technology will take in the next probably 10 years of time is towards this intermittent grid. The second line is that no, we are not going to do that. let our traditional way of looking at the grid remains the same, we'll have continuous power supply. Then the storage got to be implemented at the utilities end. Utility got to have storage because their supply is intermittent. Their demand, we cater a constant demand, so that between that you will have to have that buffer of capacity. So this question comes in a very simple manner. What is the economic solution for this? If the utility is doing that, that's bulk storage. If the consumers are doing that, it's small storage. For an example, say a fan will have a consumption of about 50 watts. So 2 hours is 100 watt hours. So 100 watt hours is a small battery pack of that nature. Recently I bought a battery pack, 20,000 milliampere hours, 5 volts. That is 100 watt hours. For my fan, that is 2 hours. So in the future, you may be having that sort of a small battery packs coming fixed onto your fans, where the fan can run for 2 hours. So this, your bulbs will have a small battery which the bulb can operate for 2 hours. So you may be installing these storage bulbs in various of your rooms, and the rest of the bulbs will be the normal bulbs. So these bulbs will go down once when the utility cuts power, but your essential lamps will work. So the storage is being implemented at the utilities end, the user's end. Or else the other solution, where the utility is going to build bulk batteries, large batteries, pump storages. They will have the large, bulky storage. Where we are going is entirely dependent on what is economical. Whether putting small batteries at the user's end, whether that solution is economical, or the bulk storage at the utilities end is economical. So in that context, we have to ask another question. When we do, utilities do their storage, we do bulk storage, presuming that every kilowatt hour is important for the consumer. Whereas if that is being done at the consumer's end, they will be selectively implementing. The required kilowatt hours will only be implemented. So the requirement, this essential supply requirement will be magnitude, by the magnitude it will be different. So that also got to be taken into care once when we take this critical decision, whether to go for domestic levels or usage level storage or the utility level storage. So that's the first part of the first pivotal point, which we all have to get together and answer in time to come. So if we are going to see flow batteries, efficient large-scale energy storage possibilities, economical and efficient storages, and if we see the possibility of Sri Lanka to build mega pump storages, then of course we will be looking at utility level storage. My way of looking at this is most likely we will be looking at both. Domestic level, small, that is one large market, a massive market that the industry's got to look into within the next, my feeling is next 5 to 10 years. This is a market that any industrialist in this forum, you guys got to look into. Because I'm pretty sure that whatever it is, people are going to put batteries at their homes. This is going to happen. Once when that requirement comes, from our side, we got to implement some sort of a tariff. Some sort of a tariff for people to finance their batteries and help the grid and to be paid for the help that they are rendering. So that essentially got to come in. So just now I was talking with Mr. Rohan Senivaratna also, whether there is a possibility for us to work out such a tariff. So that is from our side, we got to provide some sort of a financing mechanism for people to come in with batteries and help us, rather than us putting bulk batteries and supplying everybody or treating everybody the same. Second thing that I want to mention you is the way how the grid is being made. I'll take a small example from your own home. Now, the way how your home is being wired is basically geographic. You have two rooms connected to one feeder or one MCB. The next room, another MCCB. So basically your home is being segregated into adjacent rooms, 1 or 2 rooms, and connected to MCCB. So you cannot disconnect your essential loads or basically you cannot segregate your essential loads and non-essential loads anyway. Your essential loads are inside your non-essential loads. This is the traditional way of looking at it. That's exactly what we also have done. That's exactly what utilities also have done. We also have laid our cables, and on our way, just like a bus going, when you find the consumer, you give a connection. You give another 200 meters, you give another connection. Probably one is a hospital, other one is a school, next one is a home. We don't care. Because that time, once upon a time, when we were doing this grid, all those loads were the same. Because we were looking at a continuous grid. In our universities, we were taught our fundamental job is to give uninterrupted power supply. So all our theories, everything what we learned was for that. So now having said that, in the future, the grid got to be formed. It said at least the distribution grid got to be segregated on reliability basis. There may be several of the feeders, multiple feeders going on one road, where the essential loads and non-essential loads are segregated. But of course, I am sure that my colleagues here will ask the question. I say now you cannot pull a one conductor along the road. The restrictions are such. So how on earth are you suggesting to draw multiple conductors? That is a question, honestly speaking, yet we don't have a clear answer. Probably when we are going for the underground cabling networks in the future by our cities, probably maybe late. Then of course the space restriction is not that critical. We may have to do a bit of investment on this. Or probably we may be installing a LV switch on each domesticity or each customer's point together with the meter, so that at the customer point we can segregate this reliability and unreliability loads. So whichever the way, we will have to have within the same geography, rather than scattering geographically, within the same geography, reliable and unreliable loads. Equally at homes also, people got to do that segregation. Technology and the equipment pertain to that requirement. MCCBs that can be remotely communicated then switched off, home area networks, Wi-Fi networks operating within home that you can switch on certain loads, what we used to call demand response. That's the second most possible technology that the industries can step into. So these are pertinent. When we look into this future of renewables, future of the grid with more and more renewable admission, these are inevitable technologies, and these are, of course, blue ocean markets for the industries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Silva. In fact, every time you are here on the dais, we go so enriched with knowledge. Thank you so much. May I please call upon Mr. Rohan Senivratne, Additional General Manager, Ceylon Electricity Board, for his presentation, please. You have the presentation. Give me a second. We'll have the presentation.
Okay.
Good afternoon to everyone, and the organizers of this important conference, the 4th Renewable Energy Growth Forum, Sri Lanka, and the participants and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this conference for inviting me to talk on this particular session, going forward technical matters, and under which I think we are supposed to talk a little bit on opportunities in Sri Lanka for renewable energy developers. So in my presentation of about 15 to 20 minutes, I will try to focus more on the Sri Lankan agenda for the integration of large quantities of renewable energy into the national grid, and the opportunities that the developers and the others will get by joining that particular very ambitious program of Government of Sri Lanka. So before I embark onto the details proper, I thought I will share a few things on the big picture of power generation in the world, so that the audience can get some more idea on how the things are happening in other parts of the world. This is how the electrical energy of the world was generated in the year 2019. About 35% generated from coal and 23% from gas, and about 10% from nuclear, about 4% from oil, and approximately 6% from wind, and 2.7% from solar, and so on. So this may have changed during the years 20 and the 2021. The trend has been to incorporate more and more renewable energy to the world grids. So this is how the electrical energy was produced in the year 2019 in the world. This gives a little bit insight to the capacities that the world has for the generation of power. About 2 million megawatts are from coal power, and approximately 1.8 million megawatts are from gas power, and hydro is about 1.4 million, and the solar and the wind, they are approximately about 700,000 to 800,000 megawatts. When you look at this chart, you see that the exponential growth is going to come from solar and the wind. The coal will definitely come down or retain as it is, or will come down. But the gas will have further tasks to do, so that there can be a little bit of increase in the natural gas usage for the power generation. But there is a tremendous increase of solar power and the wind power. And also, you can see when you look at this graph, the battery storage will come to the picture as well, and we'll add more and more battery storage to the equation in time to come. This is how our neighbor India, I think there are many who came from India around us. So this is how India produced their electrical energy in the year 2019. So thermal energy is about 76%, so out of which majority is from coal power. And about hydro is about 10%, and other renewables are about 9%. And this is how how Sri Lanka produced electrical energy in the year 2020. It was about 31% from hydropower, 36% from coal, 26% from thermal. Thermal means diesel and furnace oil. About 2.1% from wind and 2.5% from solar. So this is how Sri Lanka produced electrical energy in the year 2020. Now let us see how we can embark on this journey towards a greener electrical grid by 2030. Every utility's dream is to change the current business model of utility operation from the traditional utility model to a more digitized, decarbonized, and decentralized utility. So this is the dream of all the utilities in the world: digitized, decarbonized, and decentralized. So decarbonization is very prime important. That is why all utilities in the world wanted to incorporate, absorb more and more renewable energy to their grids. In order to do so, we have to promote decentralized power generation. I think Dr. Narendra explained it a bit in his presentation, because decentralization is a must to absorb more and more renewable energy into the grid. And also digitization is a must, because our grids should be smart grids. Our transmission grid, our distribution grids should be smart grids to absorb more and more renewable energy. So technology should go there. The digitization should happen to the grids. Then only we can absorb large quantities of renewable energy for power generation. So this is everybody's dream, and it is dream of us as well. So I represent Ceylon Electricity Board. Our dream also the same, to digitize and decarbonize and decentralize approach. So that is our vision as well. When we look at the generation mix by 2030, there are various scenarios. The stated policy scenario, announced pledges scenario, sustainable development scenario, net zero emissions by 2050 scenario. So different scenarios give different energy mix. If we go for net zero emissions by 2050 scenario, there will be large quantities of solar and wind to have this net zero emissions by 2050. So there are various scenarios. So perhaps the announced pledges scenario may be more practical to look at by 2030. Even there you can see there are large quantities of solar power and the wind power coming into the picture, in addition to hydropower and various other sectors. So this is how the world is going to go. The world is going to embark on this additional renewable integration strategy. So perhaps we will be somewhere there in between, and we can see where we are in our presentation. So in the digital grid, the grid, as I explained before, the grid should be digital. So it should be customer-centric, and the hard components will naturally be there: switch gears, transformers, power generators, and so on. So there will be IT layer over the grid. So the analytics, software, secure commands, IoT sensors, they play a huge role in the grid in time to come. And on top of all these things, the renewables, solar, battery, microgrid facilities, all these things should come to there. So this is where the technology needs. So we have to embark on new technology, absorbing more and more new technologies, smart grid features, to go on this journey to achieve and integrate large quantities of renewable energy. So this is the plan of 2030 by India. So India is going to go for about 44% of their power generation from coal, and they are going to go for about 23% solar. So that is a large quantity of power, or rather energy, is going to come from solar in the year in India. It's 23% from solar, wind about 15%, hydro about 11%, and so on. So it's when you look at that, it's about 50% of electrical energy of India is going to be generated from renewable sources by the year 2030. In order to do that, they have to construct large number of power plants. So I think I was listening to Premier Modi in the recent COP22 presentation, and India is going to have 500,000 megawatts of renewable power by 2030, out of which about 300,000 megawatts will come from solar power, and about 140,000 megawatts will come from wind power, and so on. But still, there will be 266,000 megawatts of coal power also in the equation. So this is how India is going to meet their electrical energy demand in the year 2030. Now let us see what Sri Lanka is going to do. The policy is announced. The government of Sri Lanka has already announced the policy. The policy is to go for 70% of electrical energy in the country should be produced from renewable energy by the year 2030. So the policy is approved, and policy is properly conveyed to Ceylon Electricity Board early this year, January this year, the policy was conveyed to Ceylon Electricity Board. So policy is confirmed. Policy is to go for 70% of electrical energy in the country to produce from renewable energy by 2030. Now, this is how we produced electrical energy last year, or rather 2020. You can see this one, 31% from hydro, 36 coal, 26 thermal. Thermal means oil, the diesel and the furnace oil. About 2.2% from wind and 2.46% from solar. This is how we produced electrical energy in the year 2020. Now our journey is to go for 70%. So when we look at the 70% equation by 2030, how it would be the energy mix. In order to reach this 70%, we have to change the energy mix. The present energy mix does not work because it has huge components of coal and huge components of thermal. Thermal means diesel and furnace oil. So we have to reduce those quantities. And also we have to introduce new energy source, that's the natural gas. So when you look at this pie chart, so this is how it should be in 2030. About 25% will come from hydro, 15% from wind. This is energy, and 22% from solar. About 5% from biomass, about 13% from natural gas, and the coal will come down to about 16%, and the fuel from present 28-30% will come down to 0.25%. So there won't be any fuel in the equation in 2030. So 2030 energy mix should be something like this to reach the 70% scenario. So we have to work towards this target. So this is enormous amount of renewable energy that we should bring into the grid to reach this scenario. This is how it should be in capacities. Earlier I was talking about the energy, and now this is about the capacities. So in order to reach this 70%, we have to have about 3,700 megawatts of solar and about 1,400 or rather 1,500 megawatts of wind and so on. So this is how it should be. The large quantity of power will come from solar. It is from megawatt terms, it is about 31%. But in energy terms, it is about 22%. So this should be the capacity by 2030 to reach 70% target of government of Sri Lanka. Now, in order to do this, how we should add energy? Now, when you look at this chart, you can see this is from gigawatt hours. And in 2030, you can see how much gigawatt hours that we should get from different sources. You can see the 2030 column. It's an enormous amount of solar energy. That is about almost 6,500 gigawatt hours will come from solar. And wind, about another 4,400 gigawatt hours from wind. So there will be large quantities of energy should come from solar and wind to meet this 70% target. So this is the most interesting, the capacity additions. So by 2030, as I said before, we should have about 3,700 megawatts of solar, 1,500 megawatts of wind and so on. So in addition to that, we have to have firm power as well. Because if you want to add more and more renewable energy, equally we have to develop the firm power also. Because if you don't have firm power, when there is intermittency, when there is no wind and when there is less sunlight, we cannot manage our grid. So therefore, grid should have firm energy as well. So this equation, this chart will give the whole scenario. You need large quantities of major hydro, mini hydro, wind, solar, biomass, and also we have to have the thermal additions. Those should run on natural gas. So approximately about 1,900 megawatts of natural gas power plant should also be there. But the furnace oil power plant will be limited to just 25 megawatts or so because we don't need that. Then you can see little down, you need pump hydro. Pump hydro plants of about 400 megawatts. And also to absorb all these renewable energy, as Dr. Narendra said, we need batteries. So the battery capacity will be about 900 megawatts to reach this equation, to absorb these large quantities of renewable energy. You can see the installed capacity in the year 2030 will be about 12,000 megawatts. but our peak demand in 2030 is about 4,500 megawatts. There's a huge gap because when we absorb solar and wind, the plant factors are much less. Solar plant factor is about 18%, wind maybe 40%, 38, 40%. Then you need large capacities to drive the same energy. So that is why when you look at this equation, you see that the...
Thank you, Mr. Rohan. It was a very enriching and very interesting presentation. Truly said that everybody has to hand holds together to reach the ambitious targets. Thank you so much. May I now please call upon Mr. Harsha Vikramasinghe, Deputy Director General, Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority. Harsha, please.
Thank you very much, Julian and his friends from India and my great colleagues over here. They have stolen my thunder, words and everything, so I have nothing else to add, frankly, because it had been a wonderful experience listening to both of them from the two utilities. And because I always, when I sit with them, I get up a much more enlightened person. And I have another reason to thank both of them, the power cut, because they give me a lot of time to dream wide awake. So I dream a lot, sleeping as well as when I'm awake. So it's they have given me the pleasure of additional 1 hour, 2 hour of dreaming time, and also quality time. I catch up with my family and 3 pets in the garden in the darkness. So it's a heartfelt thank from me for the both gentlemen for the quality time. It's very difficult for me to get my kids off their devices. So now they are off their devices for at least 1 hour. So I'm really thankful. And not only that, about the dreaming business. So we are here to discuss technology. And fortunately or unfortunately, the Sri Lankans will know this. During any power crisis, be it petroleum related or power related, I happen to be in the limelight for some reason, just like Anil Bharati during the Christmas time and Lionel Ranwala and his singers during the Sinhala New Year time. I am the singer for the power crisis period for some reason. So these things together gives us the important question, what are we doing with technology? So technology is a very broad meaning word. So here we discussed the battery storage technology, the renewable energy technology, but the one thing we have missed so far is the technology is there for people to make use of, some productive use must come out of technology. I have been in many training workshops and capacity building workshops where we tried hard to push technology into people's lives. So we create a lot of training workshops, capacity building workshops, just to promote a technology to make life easier for people. But frankly, it doesn't work like that. If there is a need, if the people can get some service out of their that particular technology, people will automatically use that technology. So I am seeing just the beginning of that great revolution in terms of electricity supply. Just managed to get hold of an electric bulb where it doesn't go off when there is no power. So it comes with a small battery, maybe a very cheap battery. It will not last for 6 months, I am sure, because the price is unbelievably low. It's about 1,000 rupees, and it stays on for about 2 hours, just sufficient to last the power cut. So it's there in the market. So that is the kind of technology which will come into the play, because that will serve a very specific and decisive need in the many years to come. So Dr. Narendra discussed the large-scale utility storage solution, and I happen to notice the small end of the thing, not even far smaller than the residential unit level. So household batteries, behind the meter batteries, we have got the policy approved by the government, and we are very hopeful that just like the Suryabala Sangrama or the battle for solar energy transformed the solar energy market in the country. And I must also tell you, these two gentlemen, they were the leading figures in getting this to their respective utilities to agree. So it was quite a unimaginable success from the country's perspective. We now generate more than 4% of our total generation from solar rooftops. I think we are in the top 3 countries. I searched, and it's not an exhaustive search, but I couldn't get not more than 2 other countries who have reached that kind of high level of solar rooftop generation. So that transformation catered to a need, and that is why the market took it up so very eagerly. So market transformation is the name of the game. So we create all the conducive conditions, but never push technologies on people. So that is one thing I wish to state here. So in that way, we have come a long way. We have been dealing with more than a century with hydropower, and recently from 1998 onwards, we have been getting a taste of wind energy and solar off-grid. We have been dealing with that, I think CEB's first pilot plant in Pattiyapola, 1970s, and more recently, the World Bank project, we have dealt with solar. Like that, technologies will come, and people will accept it when there is some value, some need, the need they can get satisfied. So that is the way technology. So if you are really keen to work with technology, there is one more opportunity coming up, the aggregation and integration aspect of the energy industry. I hoped Mr. Rohan Senaviratne would have dealt with this because he is a keen thought leader in digital transformation. Since he did not mention it, I take this opportunity to just give you a hint of what is there to be expected. So there's a large-scale transformation of markets in the developed Asian markets, especially South Korea and Japan, where you get the utility services bundled together, the milk delivery man, the electricity, telecom, gas, everything done by a reseller. So they aggregate these markets and serve the purpose. But the danger is in the European sector, all these resellers are finding it a very difficult period of existence, and they are going bankrupt one after the other. So some of my colleagues living there, they have lost almost all the resellers in their area. They have gone bankrupt, and they have a very difficult period getting these services. But nevertheless, keeping the dark side out, the market aggregation is a digitalization effort. We will get a lot of value into our infrastructure, because these things will allow us to keep on using the same electrical infrastructure almost forever if we are really keen to get the network going and network going digital. So my dream is to see the day when my neighbor can sell electricity to me through the public network and settle the account then and there through electronic means. So like that, if we can convert the whole country into one major marketplace for stored energy as well as renewable intermittent energy, where you can buy and sell energy as and when you need from anyone you think is good. That is the kind of market transformation which will really derive a lot of benefits to countries like us. So that will also create a lot of other opportunities for the renewable energy industry to grow, because it will open many more closed boxes, and these are actually Pandora's boxes, because it will create a lot of headaches for the planners and engineers, but it will serve the nation in a much better way. This will create a lot of technical issues, a lot of financial issues, but it will also create a vast inclusive network of market participation, and that can happen only with the leadership. If we are getting the leadership, the utilities and the planners can do their bit, these things can take place. So technology is there to serve us, and without pushing technologies on people, If we change the market, transform the market, the technologies will work for us. That is my concise message to you, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, panel, and thanks, delegates. I think it's been, though I was like partly in and out, but as much as I could hear and I could see, I think the panel has really done, justice to the topic, and especially when I heard Mr. Rohan, from Additional General Manager from Ceylon Electricity Board, I think threadbare, he brought the ambition into bits and pieces. It's like what and how it has to be done, so at least a vision. It was nothing but a blueprint of the vision of the government of Sri Lanka. So what kind of investments, something which I really liked, which he said, was that it's going to be a very inclusive exercise. As he rightly said, every citizen of Sri Lanka, every common man, entrepreneur, entire stakeholders, everybody has a role to play. And I think a country like Sri Lanka should not shy away from taking such ambitious targets. Worst come, it might not be able to meet the deadline of 2030, but at least the whole exercise will be in the right direction. I can still connect it with India, when India spoke about 175 gigawatt, and everybody disbelieved, because until few years ago, when we had Mr. Manmohan Singh as a Congress government, India had set up a target of 20 gigawatt. And that was a time when we used to travel internationally, everybody used to question us, and they used to disbelieve that 20 gigawatt, you sure India will be able to achieve? Because then that time, I'm talking about 10 years ago, or 11 years ago rather, 2010, when we had Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, everything changed afterwards. But before that, when we were in few megawatts, the world didn't believe us. But the moment we had Mr. Modi in 2014, and he said 20 gigawatt is like a peanut statistic, peanut figure for a country like India, which has blessed with almost like, 330 to 340 days a year with sunlight. It's like we say in India, sun shines every day in some part of the country. So, and then with so much of resources, natural resources available, and we are talking about 20 gigawatt, he straight away made it 100 gigawatt for solar alone. Out of which, this is a 100 gigawatt from 175. And today, you see where we are. So I think, and I remember when we used to talk to the stakeholders, even the government stakeholders, all they used to say, so what if India does not meet its target by 2022? Let's say a couple of years later down the line. But things will be on the right track. And that's what I think by doing so, today at COP26, he's talking about 500 gigawatt by the year 2030. See, and again, this is like a glass ceiling. You raise it as much as you want, as much as you can, and then start working towards it. You might do 60%, 70%, but that 60-70% itself will be a number to boast of. And it will bring entire society, all the stakeholders holding hands with each other. Inclusive growth, typical classical case of inclusive growth. And I'm sure a country like Sri Lanka has so much of resilience. There are examples from the history, and they will be able to do that. And this is one reason that when we come back to Sri Lanka time and again, I think this is our fourth edition, as we say, and each time we go back, we are further rejuvenated, further motivated to come back with new ideas, new ways. We used to do it in Taj Samudra until now, but then it's the first time we are moving to a very professional venue here. We have much bigger plans, which we'll like to unveil over a period of time, and we'll like to coming back to this beautiful country, and we want to be part of the journey, seeing the transformation in Sri Lanka. So, but I think the way Mr. Rohan had showcased the plan, I think it looks like there's a huge seriousness at the top, and I'm sure it's like that kind of a story. But again, a bottoms-up approach is always welcome, which I'm sure we'll be able to do it together. And Thank you so much, Dr. De Silva from Lanka Electricity Company. You have been a great support to our efforts, our endeavors in the country. And I remember meeting you in the past. You were with our panel earlier as well. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, Mr. Harsha Vikramasinghe, from Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority. It's an old friendship, and we really appreciate when you carve out time from your busy schedules. We know that you all are running against time. You have many, four more important tasks to attend, but still this shows that your commitment to our forum, that there is an honest intent, and we are there as a hand to be held. Together we can make this journey comfortable and kind of sustainable for all of us. So we wish the country, the citizens of Sri Lanka, good luck and a very motivated spirit to see that we come out of this dilemma of power, where we are. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, panelists, once again. Lovely attendees. And let me invite you to a quick cup of tea and coffee. Post that, we'll get into one more session, and then we'll break for lunch. Thank you much, and thanks, everyone. Thank you. Group photo? Okay. Come, Avit. You also join.
Podium, please. Take a seat. And may I kindly request Anand to take over for the first presentation? Yeah. We'll do a group photograph later.
Good morning, everyone. Namaste from India. Thank you. Thank you, Infoma, for arranging such a event, which is really, nicely organized at a very appropriate time. And today's session from the text and details of the Mr. Rohan is really good. And I really appreciate that, and also mentioned that he emphasized on the inclusive aspect of the successful of the projects. Really appreciate this, and really appreciate those kind of thoughts from the government department. Really appreciate this. So to start with this, it's India and Sri Lanka. It's having a very different and a very a unique kind of relation. It's not about the two countries. It's about two different neighbors for a very longer time. Onyx group of companies. So thank you very much, and thank you having me here. Thank you for listening. Discuss about the growth and opportunities and energy business. Let's discuss something different. We are discussing about many of the things, but future, it's all about frequent changes in dynamics, environmental and the geopolitical situations, and many other things. We are getting so much of surprises here in this. We are also, there is multiple forces are there, lots of confusions and many other details, and everything is there. It's bit, we can say about the hazy environment. It's really difficult. If you meet two consultants, the two may give you the different opinion. So it's maybe sometime exactly opinion different. So that is a really difficult to take some decisions. If we discuss about this e-com bubble in 2000, then the WTC attack and the Iraq, Afghanistan, and the so on and so forth, China slowdown and the shortage of and the imbalance of resources, talents, foreign currency, energy, and many other things. The story doesn't end here. It's in 2020, we welcome the COVID in our life. We are now comfortable living with that. So welcome to the VUCA world. VUCA, it stands for the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Since the situation is volatile, the nature and the dynamics are really changing so fast and so quickly. It's really difficult to understand this. Uncertainty that leads to the lack of the predictability, right? And it's given the surprises all the times, every time. Complexity, because of this multiple forces, it's really difficult to take any kind of decision. And because of all this accumulated, this situation is really hazy. Now, for last 2 days, I think we are discussing more about the problems and challenges, right? So this is anyway discuss about a small thing about the VUCA. It's acronym by the US World War College. So they have designed this, and this acronym is well accepted by the industry leaders. So what is the solution? Solutions thinks possibilities. So I'll just quickly share about one story. There is one boy with a single arm. He want to pursue, he want to practice, he want to learn the judo. So all the gentlemen, all the coaches, they have denied, because with their single arm, he is not qualified for this. But one coach accepted it. He agreed to that, to train him, and not only train him, he made him that capable in 1 year training. He participated in one tournament. He won the match, and after winning, then having the trophy on the left arm, all the coaches went to the another coach that we rejected this boy, and why you accepted this? So the coach says that in general, you are seeing that what the people have and what the people not have. But I see what I can do with this gentleman or this boy have. So I think what we are need to think that instead of thinking what we don't have, let's think about what we can do with what we have. Instead of discussing about all the challenges and problems, let's discuss what we can do with whatever the resources we have. We may have the challenges. We may have the challenges of finance, we may have the challenges of infrastructure, we have the challenges of the talents and everything. So what we can do this? So let's discuss the possibilities, solutions. So the solution is inclusive growth. This is what in India we call Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So it's like, in the environment issue, it's not limiting to the one company, one organization, the one country. It's equally for the each and every organization. It's equally for the each and every country. And the solution is this: inclusive solutions, ESG, environmental, social, and corporate governance. We can say. So quickly summarize this: this renewable energy will play definitely a really good part for this. Specific about the solar energy, where our company worked solar and other specific. We are also into the wind as well, but solar, it's really, one of the very cost-effective solutions, right? We can say, unlimited energy resources, zero emissions, and specifically, it also helps in the agriculture part as well. Discuss about the, situations. Let's see quickly about our journey. In 2007, our chairman director, Mr. Divyesh Patel, with the very noble situation, they started the organization in 2007 with a very small activity, that is, electrical contractor, and is very ambitious, very hardworking, very simple and noble. And now the organization, we are here in 2022, exploring the global environment. During this almost more than 12-15 years, we we learn something, we feel many of the time, but with the experience, we are here now. So thank you for having us. Basic core values about this company: safety, quality, and timely delivery of the projects. We'll see what is this. One of the segment we are into, that is solar PV model manufacturing. Its capacity of 100 megawatt per year. It's approximately, we can say, 3 million panels per year. That is the capacity. Approximately 136 million units can be generated. Reduces the carbon emissions of approximately 62,050 tons every year. And we're really proud to say that it really reduced the coal consumption of approximately 54,400 tons every year. At the same time, we saw these solar EPC projects, that is all the residential, commercials, and industrial solutions. This is we discuss about what are the projects we have completed. We have commissioned more than 120 plus megawatt projects so far, 6,000 plus residential premises, includes the 2,000 plus solar street light projects installed till date, 2,500 plus solar pumps, specifically for the agri industries. Again, really proud to say that that's really generated 480 million units so far, reduced the carbon emission approximately 87,000, and coal consumption of 192,000 tons so far. And we are also into the EPC solutions for the wind and turbine. 18 numbers of so far these wind turbines are already installed. Commissioned 150 megawatt till date. Generated 204 million units so far. Reduced carbon emissions approximately 1 lakh tons, and again reduced the coal consumption of 8,16,000 tons. Our operations and maintenance, we are equally in the operations and maintenance as well. Experience of maintenance of 100 plus government substation still under maintenance, and still it is going on in a very perfect manner. Reduced transmission and distribution loads. It's really proud to that, and I'm coming from the India, and I'm coming from the Gujarat state, where the industrial T&D loss was somewhere around 40% plus. And now with the help of, as rightly said, the inclusive effort, now we are able to reduce that T&D loss approximately up to 15%. And still we are thriving. We are trying to reduce these losses as much as possible. Laid down, maintained the transmission lines of, approximately more than 150 kilometers of cabling and retransmission of the roads and construction projects. We are also in some of the segments, like quickly go through that. We are also into the OEM product suppliers that deals with the LED light, electrical fans. Discuss about the LED fans. The BLDC technology reduces the almost 1/3 of the electricity. Water purifiers and electrical cables of all categories. Future vision, it's very short. You can say we are here in Sri Lanka, next is Bangladesh, then Africa, and then US. Right. So I conclude my remarks that without the greatest danger in the turbulence time is not the turbulence. It's the act of with the yesterday's logic. So let's discuss about the solutions. Let's discuss about the possibilities. India and Sri Lanka having a free
NC, and Ramka Holdings Private Limited is our local partner. For CCAM, we are actively working since past more than 20 years in Sri Lanka, supporting the medium voltage and low voltage and also telecom. LICO, Ceylon are our customers as well. So some pictures of our capability. So you can see the right crimping looks like this. In our factory, we have the equipment to see the compression ratio and to find out if it is done correctly. I'll play a short video. So I request please look in the last 2 seconds how this equipment will do the correct cut and strip. Okay, so we have in-house laboratory which is NABL accredited. So the right equipment do the right, it is programmed to cut at the right length, and it will strip the cable. So our focus as a group is on total solution provider. We provide you the anchoring mechanism, the IPC harness solution. We can do the isolation combiner box. We can provide you with a monitoring solution, a containerized solution as well for your off-grid, the medium voltage, high voltage transmission side products as well. So in renewable energy, we can support the utility scale project. We are capable to support floating solar, mini grid, energy storage as well, wind products as well. So using CCAM solar solution, you will be able to reduce the civil works. You will be able to reduce the cable you use in the project site. That will ultimately help you control the losses, and your productivity will increase. So in the existing solar farm, you connect individual solar strings to the nearest combiner box. Using our DC isolation IPC harness solution, you will be able to run 2 cables only, which will go to the DC isolation box, and it will the further connection will remain same, but the cabling can come down drastically. So I'll play another video to show how easy the installation of our products is.
Morning everyone, this is Daniel and Alex at the Dunblane Solar Farm. We're just pulling the positive IPC harness out of the SECAM box, putting it on the positive bus bar, which on this cable tray is the bus at the top of the cable tray. Basically what we're doing is checking that the red bolts are on the right connector, checking all the connections are fine, IPC is the right orientation. Alex has got the impact driver, and away we go to shear the bolt off. Simple as that, basically done. And then all we do is the same with the negative harness on the negative bus. One thing we're finding at the moment is just making sure that we're doing the bolts up finger tight as we can with our fingers, just to make sure that the IPC seats well on this conductor, because it's only 95 square mil. It's at the bottom range of the range of that IPC, so we just need to make sure that it's going to seat right and not throw the conductor out of the seating position. And this is the negative one being installed. What we do after that is basically just route all the leads along the cable trays and then just plug them into the appropriate panels. The bus then feeds back down to the main bus and then goes into the inverter where the boys are working on the HV terminations.
Okay, so as you have seen, the installation is that easy. You don't need very skilled people. As soon as the torque is attained, the bolt automatically breaks off, and it's just a repetition of these connectors. So the size you have to achieve of installation, you need a faster installation mechanism with what we are capable to provide. Okay, these are some of the arrangements we can support. Either it is 2-way U parallel or 3-way, and these IPCs are already at site in the MVCC network of Sri Lanka, so they are weather proven in the market. Okay. So we have different type of inline fuses, replaceable one, as well as this embedded fuse cartridge. So this is very well can withstand 1 week underwater, and so this is best suited for a floating solar application. So we have the anchoring suspension arrangement. If you need not to run the cable tray, we can support it. We can support you with isolation box and a combiner box solution. So the innovative solution we have is a wireless monitoring of solar string. So in the existing plant or in the new plant, you can just clamp this device on your solar cable, and it will measure the magnetic field and provides you the current data of individual string. Like this, as in the picture, and the picture of the product installed at site. So the architecture is, it can be wired or wireless. So this product communicates through a Bluetooth network, and the range is 250 meters. So this using Bluetooth technology, it will communicate to nearest DCIB box, and either through a wired connection or again through a Bluetooth mesh, it can further communicate to the SCADA. So these are some of the projects who have trusted us. Unfortunately, we pray for this country. So the benefits you will get is the real-time monitoring using this device, real-time fault detection, and the location of fault can also be identified. We also have containerized solution for the energy storage projects. This is some pictures of our solution supported in the off-grid market. These some pictures again. So coming to the references, what projects SECAM has already supported globally. So these are some of the projects in Australia, in Dunblane Solar Farm, Ross River, which is 148 megawatt. And these are some of the solar projects in EMEA region. The side picture of product is also visible. These are our worldwide customers for solar. Okay, and this is myself in the picture. I am on one of the solar rooftop. Okay, so this is very latest. Before coming to Sri Lanka, I was there. So we can support that as well. We provide on-site support if required with our products. Okay, thank you. There's a last few minutes I'll use. Okay, this is our company video profile.
I would like to thank the Informer Market team for organizing such a beautiful event and all other local stakeholders involved in organizing this event. Thank you very much. So, I am Anush Sharma. I am here to represent a company called Campbell Scientific. I am here to talk about measurements. We have had a lot of information on panels, cables, policies, stakeholders, but yes, measurements also play a very important role. So why measurements are important? What measurements are important? My presentation is all about measurements. So I'm from a company called Campbell Scientific. That's a US-based company. We have an Indian office. From Indian office, we cater to the neighboring countries, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan. It's a 45-year-old company in the field of measurement only when it comes to data acquisition, metrology. These are our direct existence throughout the world where you can find a Campbell Scientific office. Other countries which are not mentioned here are represented by our dealers. Likely we have dealer in Sri Lanka. In India, it's been spoken a lot. Renewable has been on a boom in India for past 10-15 years. We have found our way into that. We do include ourselves. We feel very privileged to be a part of that. Our systems are there in more than 1 gigawatt of installations in the Indian solar power plants. We've installed more than 500 weather monitoring stations in the country for solar power plants only. When it comes to wind, we have more than 50 met mast towers to assess the resource in the wind energy department in India. What exactly is a weather monitoring station? As the name says, the thing that monitors weather, different parameters of weather. So likely when we take it to a renewable power plant, it becomes a solar weather monitoring station, where we pay more emphasis on monitoring the parameters related to solar, the amount of radiation you'll get, the temperature at which your solar panels are being heated. All these parameters are monitored. Why are they important? I'll talk you through the same going ahead. What does a WMS do? WMS is a weather monitoring station. It can analyze, it can predict. So before you set up a power plant, you need to know how much resource you have in that area, whether it is fruitful to install a power plant of saying 10 gigawatt, 10 megawatt, 20 megawatt in that area. Do you get the enough sunshine throughout the year or not? Are there thunderstorms in monsoon? So I need to design my civil structure accordingly, my structures for the panel accordingly, which can sustain that amount of wind speed coming, which is predominant maybe in the monsoon. So there you can analyze and predict. Solar radiation data you can get, you can plan your plant accordingly. Performance ratio, once your plant is installed, it is very important to have a data of your performance ratio, how much you are generating. You may claim that we have a 10 megawatt plant, but you end up generating only 6 megawatt. Then you'll be questioned, why was that? Then you have a data to show that throughout the day, it was the sunshine that we got was not enough to generate 6 megawatt or 10 megawatt. Panels got heated too much that they could not perform at peak. So we provide all that data. Why it is important, just what I went through. So it helps you in maintenance activities, it helps you to predict, it helps in plant safety. You can design the plan according to the local conditions you have. Every place will have different conditions, different coasts will have different conditions, different terrains will have different conditions. The type of measurements that go through in a solar power WMS, we monitor air temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, wind direction, precipitation, solar radiation coming horizontally, solar radiation incident on the angle we have placed your panels at. That's what we call POA, plane of array. Your module temperatures, barometric pressure, all the measurements related to weather. The first and the important thing we have is a data logger. We are a data logger building company. We are very proud to say that the kind of data loggers we have them running in the field for more than 25 years with very less maintenance. They are too accurate to monitor millivolt signals coming out of a pyranometer that gives you a solar radiation. Depending on how big the plant is, we decide which data logger to go. Second most important thing in a solar power plant is a pyranometer, a sensor that gives you the amount of solar radiation you are receiving in watts per meter square. Different plants, depending on the type of plant, you have bifacial plants, you have the other plants. The different types of pyranometers are used at different inclinations. There's also one thing called as albedo, where you place two pyranometers upside down when you have a bifacial plant. So all the measurements possible we can do with our equipments, with our data loggers, with our pyranometers. The next sensor that comes into the picture is a module temperature sensor. It's important to know how much heated is your panel. You do have those heat guns, but that's when you go there manually and take the data. But this will keep on giving you data automatically throughout the day. You can go back to your panel manufacturer and claim your warranty against the power curve. A power curve says that this will perform and peak for a temperature range. But what if it is not performing? You have the data to claim that. When it comes to O&M, it's important to know when to clean your panels. It might look dirty from the naked eye, but you might be generating enough that you do not need to clean it. Or it might not look that dirty from the naked eye, but you are not generating enough. So we have a soiling system where we compare two solar panels. One is cleaned every day, the other one is cleaned whenever the plant is cleaned. We take the short circuit current, we take the module temperatures, and as per the calculations given by the standards in IEC, we give you an effective irradiance. The ratio of the effective irradiance of both the panels give you the soiling loss. So we give that in percentage, 96%, 97%, 90%. So based on your local condition, you decide when to clean it. Cloud measurements, very important. You might have a day where it was covered with cloud. You are not generating anything. The pyranometer radiation would show there was not enough radiation. It can mean the pyranometer was dirty, but no, you'll have another data to show that it was covered with the cloud. So in India, MNRE, they require cloud data in octas. Octa is 1/8 of sky. So we give in octas. If it is 2 octas, so that means 25% of the sky was covered with cloud. So this data is also very important when you're talking about generation and generation loss and plant performance. Other sensors which find their way in a solar WMS are air temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, wind direction. Wind speed plays a very important role for your structures. If the wind speed is more, it can impact your structure. It can uproot your structure. It can like break your solar panels. So you have enough data. Unlikely if such an event happens, a thunderstorm is there, you have a data to claim your warranty also, your insurance also. You can go back to the insurance company, show the data that yes, there was a thunderstorm, that's the reason it has uprooted, it has broken. Precipitation, rain helps you to optimize your cleaning cycle if you have that data coming to your SCADA. Barometric pressure, another weather monitoring parameter, plays a very important role because if there's a drop in pressure, different events take place. These are some typical measurements. We measure horizontal irradiance. As I mentioned, we measure the tilted radiation on the angle you have set your solar panels at. We measure albedo, that comes in play when there are bifacial panels. We measure direct radiation, where you put a sun tracker and you know what's the direct radiation you are getting. We measure diffuse radiation. Diffuse is when the sunlight is scattered from the clouds. So all these measurements are done for radiation. Other standard measurements, wind speed, wind direction, temperature, backup panel, soiling loss, and then the cloud. So we cover it all. We give you all the data before setting up a plant, after you set up a plant, how to run it, how to show how much plant is performing, and then when the O&M comes in, they know when to maintain the plant, when to clean the plant. So that's all I have for the measurements. And on a lighter note, just saw a photo on social media yesterday that does anybody remember when did the prices of renewable increase when two foreign countries was fighting? So the answer was no. So that's where we are heading, and luckily we'll have more such conferences where we can meet on a bigger platform with better numbers to show from the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuj. This is very analytical. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to state, and I repeated yesterday as well, we've got the exhibition happening across the hall, and I would request you to please visit the stalls there, and you can interact with the representatives, you can talk about business associations and collaborations. May I please invite Mr. Tharinder, Senior Channel Sales Manager, Digital Power, Huawei Technologies, Lanka Company, to present his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Tharinder, and I'm from Huawei. Most of you know Huawei, but let me explain what is digital power is. Huawei has been in the power industry for almost 20 years. We have our inverters for almost 10 years alone as well. But Huawei has decided, and we believe in Huawei, the energy, the smart energy, the green energy is the future, and the digitalization of the power is the future, and the smart grids. As spoken in the last panelist also, I think we are going toward the correct way. So we decided at Huawei to form a different organization inside our division, which is going to cater for the digital power, which include data centers, smart energy, EV mobility, and ESSs, storages, and all toward the greener and a digital future for energy. So I'm representing digital power in this department, and for today I will be only focusing on the renewable energy side, like the inverter and the energy storages. If I give a small glance about the Huawei, we are number 3 in the spending on research R&D. This is not only in the PV domain, this is all together compared to companies like Google and all. And half of our employees are deployed in the research and development. So we are a very futuristic company, always innovating and on the edge with the technology. So we believe that is where our success is. So today I'll be focusing a little bit on new opportunities. Again, I'll be focusing on energy storage, basically for domestic, because we believe it will kick off sooner. And this is again backed by the last panelist also. There are 2 storages, the commercial as well as domestic. There are 2 ends. So we have both solutions, but we'll be focusing more on residential as of now. In a glance, this is all of our portfolio in a domestic region. So we have our inverters, which are hybrid ready as well. We have our own monitoring portal, except of panels and all. We have our total solution with us. The key benefit in our products is those are future proof and future ready. So if you decided to go on a storage system later on, there's a capability. You don't have to go for a separate inverter, separate equipment, or retrofits. So we are anyway focusing on future, not on today's present demand. So that is the key benefit and the key thing that we are actually promoting on. We have launched, this is already launched, and that is our smart energy storage system. This comes in modular levels. So you have 5 kilowatt hour modules where you can go up to 90 kilowatt hour storage as well. And we have achieved 100% depth of discharge, which is a very good in terms of industrial standards. These all was achievable because of our digitalization and the smart energy technologies, and also the optimization of our technologies. I will be focusing a bit on advanced features as well. So our battery storages are also future-proof. Currently, there are 100 kilowatt ampere hours and so on. But our batteries, our battery modules are capable of handling the future batteries that are about to come also, which are not yet in the market. So all of our clients or our solutions are future-proof in that way. Also, as I explained earlier, the inverters are anyway built in with hybrid features where you don't have to have additional investments or infrastructure change if you decided to go for storages. And because of that, our optimization, we have like 8 sensors for each of battery modules, which include one sensor for 2 cells, which enables cell level monitoring as well as adoption after, let's say, after 2-3 years, you decided to put a new battery backup. But in usual scenarios, it won't be feasible because those are connected series. But due to this levelized and the modularized structure, you can always enhance your systems as you go and without any issues as well. So we have 5 layers of protection because we believe it's not just the reliability, you have to have protection, safety, and everything inbuilt because these are considered as dangerous good in a way. So we have cell level monitoring where you can monitor the temperatures and any abnormal behaviors of cells, and there will be notification generating. And also we have optimization, therefore there won't be any kind of a plus or minus voltage in any battery terminals. Because of that, the safety is assured. There won't be any risk of fire or any kind of hazards. Also, there's internal short circuit measurements, which is done by AI technology, which is always monitoring with our big data. It will be mapping everything, any kind of sparks, which is it's a spark or it's a noise, likewise. Also, we have a smart fire extinguishing system inside our batteries also. In case of fire, these kind of things will help because our priority is safety. Then when we go into the systems, downtime, less downtimes mean actually money, time and the less downtimes. So we have a certified TUV rate less, like 5%, 0.5% less failure rates. That is mainly due to optimizing on the wear and tears because most of the small scale defects are happening at LCDs and even fuses. And also buttons are the things that are going to get wear and tear very easily. So those kind of things has been taken out from our equations and making our inverters very futuristic and getting our downtime very less into even less than 0.05. I mean, it's backed by TUV. Then we believe the visualization that what we see and we should have the flexibility to see or the monitor generations, failures, and notification. So that facilities are all there with all our hybrid systems, commercial, and also domestic systems. Taking this to next level, we have our AI-based smart IV curve tracking. So let's consider a 300 megawatt plant and doing the maintenance. OEM will consider a huge amount of human resource as well as money in terms of. But with our systems, we can measure or identify any defects in our PV panels with IV curve monitoring within 15 minutes for a 300 megawatt, what we are talking about here. So we can identify PID losses and fuses, also damages that happens to panels, also shading effects. Everything can be analyzed with our IV curve tracking. This is also artificial intelligence. This is always comparing our big data with all the other plants and all the data being communicated as well. So these kind of failures can be identified through our monitoring process, so which is going to save you a lot on your operation and maintenance cost. When we consider the levelized cost of electricity, people always believe going for a lower capex is the best solution. But the later part, there is a lot of O&M operation that is coming into play, which is going to give you either return or a negative feedback on your returns. So these things can be optimized with our artificial intelligence technologies. So we also have an AI-powered active arcing system because usually arcing is a little bit hard to trace because it always considered as a noise as well that is happening on an inverter level. Because of our AI technologies and the big data, we have mastered a solution where you can track all the active arcings and we can prevent and disconnect our system whenever this arcing happens, which is going to save us on a fire hazards and all these kind of issues. This is basically, we are focusing very much on the safety aspect. And on some countries, these kind of technologies are must because you are installing some power generating unit on top of your roofs. So I will show you this. This one is initially without the arc fault detection. So you can see it's not stopping. So when you have the arc fault detection, you can stop actually, the arc is not going to continue. So the fire risk is very minimal and actually you can say not at all. So our arc detection is also above the standards. We can measure any arc up to 200 meters in CI and domain, and on the residential domain we can measure it up to 80 meters strings levels. So those kind of standards are there with us on our systems. And also we are very standard oriented, and we have our state-of-the-art testing facilities, and we are the only guy, not only, I mean, very few people who do this rocket lightning test as well for their search protections. So we have passed all these tests, and we have 25 specific tests, and we have gone through very rigorous tests to ensure the quality of our products. Our production lines are also all automated, and strictly online quality checks are there just to ensure the quality of these systems and the end products is to assure. As I was mentioning, we are way above the industrial standards also. For this arc detection, the industrial standards is around 2.5 seconds, but ours is 0.5 seconds. So we always try to compete with the standards and to give a better solution for the industry. So we believe we are in line with the future development of our country. So we are hoping to contribute toward in a much brighter and a better way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tharinder. Ladies and gentlemen, before we break for the day, a round of applause for all our partners here sitting here. Nice presentation. Thank you so much. So digitalization and AI is the way forward. We break for lunch now, an hour's lunch. I would request everybody to please be aware of the time and be here by 1:55 in the interest of the next session which is coming up. You'll have some nice presentations, success stories coming up in the next session. Thank you so much. Can we have a group photograph, please? Can I invite Mr. Khattar to join them as well? If Julian is around and Mr. Ayya Narayanan is there, can we have them as well? Amitava, are you around here? Can I also have Mr. Devesh joining on the forum, please? Ayya. Appreciation from our side to Dr. Priyantha. Dr. Priyantha, please. A round of applause for Dr. Please. So the presentation by Dr. Priyantha would be on recycling of panels through blockchain. May I please invite Dr. Priyantha? Please.
Am I supposed to keep this on? Or?
No, that's your call. That's your call, please.
It's okay. It's an honor. Good afternoon. Thank you, Informer Market, Rajneesh, Amit, and Julian, my friends, and whom I've associated for the last 2 years. It's a pleasure to see you guys back in Colombo. Now, about myself, here I am now a crypto or a blockchain engineer, a solar power village engineer. That's what I am today. I'm talking to you about a new subject which I started doing. I am not an expert of this subject, but I picked up some, logic of the blockchain. Also, since the last time I met you, Rajneesh, and our team here, I've been active with a Bradford University graduate, Mr. Imran Ali, who was my good friend, who was into waste management in Sri Lanka, a municipality solid waste, and I was the Chief Minister's advisor at that time in Colombo, 2005. We built a good friendship, more than a friendship, but he's a very good young energetic engineer, and so we exchanged views, and after about 3 years of knowing, this is a small saga I have to tell you, but how I came into this. And I referred a book called The Lorax by Dr. Suis, S-C-U-S-S, from the US, a very famous children's book writer. And I referred the book to him, and because he also is a very eco-minded engineer is a medical engineer from Bradford. So in the book, there's a saying, the Lorax, which is being a senior tree-made man from the forest, comes when people do the logging. He comes and says, stop, and unless you stop, this will be gone. So we use this team called Unless Now, and formed a small London-based company, a foundation, to grow trees. And Imran and I tried growing a little bit of trees in the Knuckles Range, which is a World Heritage Site. We have a few in Sri Lanka as well. And we grew, and we formed this Unless Now Foundation. And Imran had to go because of visa problems and no issues, but he ran out of his tenure here. When he went, he kept working with me online, and he formed an organization called Save Planet Earth, SPEUK. That was an extension to the Knuckles effort to bring carbon back to Earth. Bringing carbon back to Earth with all these gases, emissions gone there, we call it sequestration. Carbon sequestration is a sophisticated word and term. So we formed this organization, Save Planet Earth. You can check it out, www.sp.uk. Then after 2021, March, he formed a new foundation called SPUK, along with an American called Robert. And from March last year to December, he reached a market cap just in 9 months, 10 months of $80 million US, with blockchain-based crypto investors, eco-minded people looking at this tree-growing initiative started buying his tokens. It's like buying shares. So in the crypto token world, which India has, I think, banned, at least mining factories being put up and all that, Sri Lanka's gazette, we gazetted the crypto law here. Blockchain was enabled here. And then he sponsored the formation of a dream which I have been pressing him to do, which when I started doing solar 25, 30 years ago, these solar panels going up in the roof worried me so much, because I was always telling my other colleagues, the founders of the industry here, how are we going to get rid of this solar panel when it's old? Because it's got all this lead and various other chemicals, metals. Very precious metals are in the solar panels, very expensive metals, yet they can be very toxic. And particularly cadmium, which is harmful to tissue. Then you have lead, which is a nerve poison. So Imran helped with his foundation, he's formed the formation of, they sponsored the formation of solar full cycle. So the solar full cycle is really meant to do what the term reads out to you, which is its recycling effort. That solar panel, once is given birth to, and towards the end of life, EOL, it has to come back to the recycling facility and be the ground for another material. So that's a term. Then our motto we picked at the moment is, if you are not into recycling mode, do not even bother to call solar eco-friendly. Basically, we are doing all this for this global warming. Just to give a background of global warming in the context of solar full cycle, we have at this moment, right now, with grid-connected solar becoming reality 2010 onwards, at the global temperatures going up, at this moment, we are installing solar panels at the rate of 70,000 solar panels per hour at this moment, anywhere in the world, if you take, and this will go up to now another 7 years. The current installed capacity in the world is solar, 900,000 megawatts. China holds 30%, Australia some, US and European markets and Africa. So current estimates of the United Nations Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, is about 78 million tons of toxic waste from solar will be amassed by year 2050. That's 80 million tons of solar waste will be there. And there's a very small number of recycling facilities for solar. Actually, it doesn't exist. What we see now is adapted factories like double-E recycling factories in Europe, China. They are doing electrical and electronics waste handling, but they are not dedicated solar, because solar volume is still not coming. They're still serving, and once the EOL is reached, it will give birth to the recycling waste. So at this moment also, the other thing to observe before I just give about 10 slides to you, the solar recycling regulations haven't been built uniformly around the world. In Sri Lanka, to start with, I use that word, but it's literally true. Out of ignorance or otherwise, we hide behind the normal waste laws of the country when it comes to double-E waste. And double-E waste with the electrical and electronics can capture solar, but Sri Lanka's solar implementation legal side doesn't impose that we recycle. It's just that a question which is asked at the Sustainable Energy Authority, how are you going to recycle? But that's how it is. So in the world over, Europe, except for Europe, Europeans are smart. They adapted their double-E waste law called WEEE, Waste Electrical Electronics Equipment Ordinance. They adapted that and they made their solar component come inside their double-E law recently. It's 2014 or so. So you can't in Europe do a solar panel, you can't sell a solar equipment, anything, if you do not have a recycling arrangement built onto the selling price of the panel. So solar panel seller, manufacturer, has to be responsible. If it's $100 a panel, he has to charge $120. That $20 should go to a fund to ensure that it will not go to a dump site. If it goes to dump sites, cadmium, chromium, silicon tetrafluoride, and various other things will leak into the ground, join the waterways, very harmful for us and future generations. And this is as bad as nuclear waste, although we don't think of it. Now, when electrical and electronics waste started generating after 40 years of calculators, computers, the world took off the electronic boom. Now this has resulted in the largest dump sites being created for EE waste, like in Ghana. So we are now going on a journey of insulations, energy gaps, all these problems. What Rajneesh, you guys are doing, I was doing, I'm in that too. We are installing, but we are not looking at the end of life thing and what happened to the electrical and electronics industry and the nuclear industry. Everybody was, if there was no lack of energy, everybody's talking about a nuclear plant. Only when that severity became so obvious, now there are constraints there. But all industries, we start with this enthusiasm, willing to take off with the global warming, solar, and other REs coming up. But we tend to forget this problem that might arise as a problem towards the future generations. So just let me walk you through quickly, because I've spoken already about 4 or 5 minutes. I won't force you to read this, but solar full cycle is a tokenized, meaning it's based on a blockchain-based token, because we need an instrument to do this eco-transaction. So it's a blockchain transaction, and all these other words are there about global warming, climate change. What it basically says is, in our push to see through the global warming problem, we are creating another terrestrial problem in terms of solar, which might be only second to the global warming problem. That's when the panels are mature. So we are bringing a global presence through the solar full cycle blockchain. This is not a Sri Lanka project. It wasn't meant to be. It was actually registered in London and Canada. So the blockchain has been used to set up the SFC solar full cycle mechanism, and we have crypto investors, members who are putting money in and out, they buy and sell. From the proceeds, we fund setting up the recycling factories, buying out solar assets, pre-booking the assets, like that. So it's a movement. So I'll go through, I won't go through all this, it's just a standard corporate jargon. So the message to here is, if you come from India or anywhere else, or you have outreach to solar panel manufacturers, balance of systems, inverters, cables, other renewables, anywhere connected to the renewable energy industry, or EE industry for that matter, then this is a connection point for you through us. So we are basically looking for solar and renewable energy system asset owners and users to say that what you use today might be an issue few years later. And we are also looking at benevolent associations, federations to say business is not all about selling solar panels. Business is not all about your solar panels delivering the energy. Business is all about having it also recycled back to the full what we call cycle economy. So what we do is we take end-of-life solar panels and other renewable energy equipment, mainly solar. Broken equipment also results in the installations, and we pick the doubly recycling institutions. Like in Australia, we're working with New South Wales. We have already set this up 4 months ago with a recycling solar panel company set up by a professor there. And he is outreach to the recycling facilities to allow us bringing the panels there which are broken. In Zambia also we are trying to work out with the engineer there to set up this process. So basically our marriage is trying to set up a solar panel or renewable energy facility and tell him, look, in 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, you are going to inherit a load of rubbish, really. And we are going to guide you. We are going to pre-book your asset, if you like. And we will get our token investors, the crypto blockchain investors, to fund the process. So he starts paying for his salvage value from now a small amounts. And by that time, just like it happening in the European Union law, by the time come the 0th day, like 20 years, 1 day for a solar panel, we go out, our agents go there, remove that solar panel assembly entirely, chock-a-block, take it to a recycling facility, and then recycler will do the entire thing, break it off, and have the entire material ready. 90% is recovered, ready to make another panel. So that's what we do. So these are other services we are doing. NFT here stands for non-fungible tokens. That's a part of this crypto token nomenclature. So this is an instrument which we have now hedged towards carbon credit. So we have access through our sister company to develop investment for whoever is interested here, or your peers and your friends, that we can develop carbon credit money through enhanced value called NFTs and raise the investment for that facility. We do other things too, as with the solar, this prospectus, but we have investment reach as well. These are our partners, Save Planet Earth, which I said is sequestering carbon, and they have the NFTs, which are selling about $20 a ton is a UNFCCC rate. We are raised NFTs worth where people are selling, investors are willing to release even $50,000 for one equivalent of a NFT. So there is a sizable amount of NFTs in Save Planet Earth's wallet. In the crypto and blockchain terminology, it's called a wallet. Deposits, the wallets are used, and they are watched over by thousands of investors, and everybody sees what each other takes. So it's a very secure, transparent mechanism. We can't say I'm going to build a recycling facility in Australia and take $10 million from that blockchain without all the people knowing about it. It has to be disclosed and taken. So it's very secure. So these are our Sri Lankan partners who are doing some solar roof systems for us. We have struck also a relationship with Sakura. They are trying to help us form solar full cycle brand panels in Japan and other places. Australia, Kratos Energy is our New South Wales partner, which is again identifying aging solar parks and having the owners talk to us through a MOU. So we pre-booked those assets. So on the 20 years and the first day later, the panels won't just lie. It's pre-booked. Our team goes and pulls it out. This is we have a research activity. We marked the blue ones, and there's red ones, and we have marked the solar farms. What are the solar recycling facilities are very few, but they are not solar, they are double E. We'll talk them about because solar industry is not old enough for double E investors to look at this as a business model. We have foreseen this before them. So we are even in Sri Lanka, there's a major recycler. We talked to them to extend their double E facility to let us open a small department there. So, but the world over, there are about 6,000 solar manufacturers, major ones, and the recyclers are, in terms of a double E facility, is only about less than 100. Yeah. So that shows this is a snapshot. There's quite a knowledge behind that shot here. there's a field in the blockchain called tokenomics. It comes from economics, token economics, how eco-minded investors sell and buy and sell. And they have their own exchanges like the Colombo exchange, but it's the virtual exchanges. They come and look at coins. Elon Musk formed this coin, what is it, Doggy coin? Yeah, so Dogecoin, and ours is SFC. We fetch a much lower value, but ours is an eco token. So there are various exchanges called PancakeSwap, LBank exchange. These are just like our physical exchanges, but they are embedded in the networks, and they are registered. So that's the ones people buy and sell from. NFT is again. These are the tools for this trade, okay? So partnerships, various things are being formed, and currently the crypto turnover in the world, the virtual cash, is about 4% of the financial flows in the world, if I'm right. And even some banks, even I was told by Rajneesh, our host here, the government of India is now considering their own India-based the virtual currency soon. So although they have banned making, say, mines and all the crypto mines, the government of India has its own vision to create its own virtual currency, which is a good thing. It's important. Virtual currencies might be important. I'm learning this. Is the lack of the avoidance of bank-to-bank transaction costs. So I get $100 from a relation from England, I end up getting only 89. But the banks from Sri Lankan banks are pretty notorious for that. But banks have to, because they have staff, so it's not unfair, it's all right, but that's how the system, this is how some banks have started making, I think Standard Chartered also made a eco-minded, eco-based coin. There are all these benefits I've written down. Basically, what we will do is, if somebody has an operating asset, renewable energy asset, and that European law is slowly approaching the world over, then people cannot, now I spoke to some solar industries here, they say, panel, getting old, we'll think about that time. That was the attitude. Even in India, in Karnataka, I spoke to a benevolent organization promoting industry. They could not see. But I have some other Indian friends, Sri Lankan, who see otherwise. And now I'm trying, this is also a crusade of education to people. To promote a good turnover-based transaction, I had to talk a lot, convince. So what we do is we espouse the benefits of this recycling program. It's not so much about crypto. Crypto is the take-off mode, but what we do is in sheer logic of the recycling problem, which is coming with 70,000 solar panels being installed per hour. So recycling companies also will have a new business just apart from solar assets owners, and we can actually pay from our investors who are people like investors. What we have currently in the SFC blockchain, we have young Americans who are driving sports cars, coming and buying $1,000, $2,000 worth of tokens. But they like to hear that they are dealing with a group that is doing something for the betterment of the future. They have seen the Amazon wildfires, Australia fires, so we have that type of token. So these platforms are comprising of such eco-minded young and medium-age investors. So there are a few logic things I put in. I don't want to go through all this stuff. But I just want to part with saying that we have our own standards also. The EPA, Environment Protection Agency, has standards. IEEE standards, US, and WEEE, Union, EU Union. We have borrowed those standards of public, so we use that to guide our solar asset owners, solar manufacturers, cable users. We are also making this is a pioneering announcement today. Amit we are announcing, we are now, so far, before I came here, last 4 months, we have been calling Australian asset companies, solar assets, have you got how many megawatts can I tie up and all that hard way. Now we are now announcing through the blockchain, anybody who has an operating solar asset, wind asset, can enter our SFC blockchain and have access to the investment and give a pledge, and they'll have to pay the salvage value over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they pay yearly, and the final day we come and remove the whole thing and take it to recycling. So they are, if the law closes on them in that region, which is happening even in India, they have the peace of mind, you are covered by this law. So I think that's it. So this is our team. Mr. Imran Ali from UK, he's the founder of Save Planet. Lali Gunrathan and my other peers here. Dr. Stratos, who was a nuclear engineer who studied with me in Boston. He's one of our Greek Mediterranean side. Then we have Dr. Nessa Khan from New South Wales. And we have the Japan-based chairman of Sakura. So that's it. That's my presentation. And if you have any questions, ask me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would have any questions to Doctor, we are more than happy to welcome them. This is one of the latest technologies for wafer recycling, and I think one of the most important topics which will be part of the future. With this, we come to the end of day 2. Doctor, please have a seat. And we would like to thank you on behalf of Informa Marcus for being part of our programs, our initiatives. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank all of you over here. I would like to invite Mr. Julian Thomas, Project Director, Informa Marcus, to present his vote of thanks to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit, and you've been a great host and you have kept everybody engaged. And one round of applause for host, Mr. Amit Sharma. And he's been writing a lot of stories around how to keep yourself much engaged. Each session, each speakers, we've been working quite a lot. I hope you enjoyed the lineup of speakers as well as the content and the deliberation in the last 2 days. And I have 2 good things. One from the professional side, and we all have come from India. We've been interacting with everyone. We have taken an initiative which we also do in India, and we have done it for the 4th edition of Renewable Energy Growth Forum also. How can we reduce the carbon footprint emission? So with the support of a couple of young entrepreneurs, the Sustainability Lab, they've been working the last 2 days specifically to identify carbon footprints, the water consumption, the food waste, and the flight what we took, how far it is. All that has been monitored, and they have prepared a report around it. Approximately, we have consumed close to 4,376 kg of CO2 equivalent because of whatever we have used during the event. Wherever we do an event and we are into sustainability, we will not damage our Mother Earth. And this event will be officially be a carbon cancelled event. We will be doing, for example, if I say we, the Sustainability Lab, they have an association with Sri Lanka Certified Emission Reduction from a renewable energy. For example, there's a body called Sri Lanka Certified Emission Reduction from a renewable energy mini hydro power project located in central hills of Sri Lanka. So they will make this event as a zero emission event, and very happy to get associated and make this event the 4th edition of Renewable Energy Growth Forum as a carbon cancelled event. And this will be the first of its kind from the renewable energy side. So it's not about luxury, it's not about the food waste. We have to care. And the way Dr. Priyanta has said, we have to take care of the whatever the waste coming in now. So it's one effort which we have taken. Second is, personally, I'm pretty emotional when it comes to the Sri Lanka. We've been doing it from 2015, and we started in 2015. We did it at Galadari. We had a great start, and then there was a lot of policy issues. Then again, we made an attempt in 2019. We did it very well at Taj Samudra. We had a very good response. We made a lot of friends. One of them is Dr. Priyanta, and there are many people, and Chandani for that matter. We've been interacting the entire day. So we made a lot of friends. We become like a family to a lot of people in the industry. 2020, 14th Feb, we executed our third edition. That's where the COVID was there. We all went back. India lockdown started on February 15th. So all of us were supposed to get isolated, but we all got saved by a few hours because we all landed on February 14th of 2020. So there is a lot of remembrance and a lot of things. We missed 2021 for whatever the reason. When we started talking to the industry, when we started talking to the end users for 2022, most of us says, no, physical shows is going to be challenging. There is a lot of negativity going around. I will say in the last, from yesterday till today, the kind of interest each professional had, the kind of interest the speakers had, I think we are going to move forward faster. I think all I can say is Informa Markets will put our best effort to bring the data, knowledge, and an opportunity to the market. So anytime you want to connect with us, we are spread all over the world. We do a lot of shows around the world. We are ready to connect you with the right set of audience. So, so that's it from one side of the stuff. And this event also personally very close to me because I was able to find my family here. And it all goes to 1960. My mother left Bandara Velai from here. And after 40 years, we identified the family here. The elder sister of my mother, she lives here. So it is very emotionally, I'm attached. Coming on the professional side, my special thanks to Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority and the Sri Lankan government officials who were ready to come forward and discuss a lot of things with us. It was a very challenging time because you know what's happening around. It's not easy for them to come out of their office and be part of it. It's a great attempt by the Sri Lankan Sustainable Energy Authority. The most important thing is the kind of support what we received from the other federation, which is the Federation of Chambers of Commerce in Sri Lanka, whether it is Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and the Chambers of Construction Industries, Green Building Council of Sri Lanka, whoever we were able to find it, who's close to renewable energy, who's ready to move Sri Lanka energy revolution, they all came forward and supported. So this is Informa's vision to change lives of billion people. That's what we've been doing it in India. We have been doing it across the world. So we have come up with such a confidence that we are moving out of Sri Lanka today or tomorrow with a lot of positivity in our mind. And always there's a commercial attachment to whatever B2B show. It is always, you need the great technology and product offering. And at this juncture, I like to thank Longi, Enerpark, Fimmer, Campbell Scientific, Evo Solar, Onyx, Sunrack, Sicam, Huawei. In fact, we want to, because of COVID, we were not able to do it too big, but we want to give a choice to our buyers who came in. We picked up the best of the solar module companies. We picked up the best of the solar inverter manufacturing companies. We brought in the mounting structure. We brought in the BOS. We created an entire supply chain for the solar sector so that one-stop solution. And during 2023, you will see more from Informa's side. And totally, we received or welcomed around 150 plus very highly qualified professionals because we want to kind of ensure that very selective set of good audience being part of it. Thank you so much, all the delegates, and also specifically today, where we were able to get the Ceylon Electricity Board and Lanka Electricity Board to play an IPL around. So it went off very well. I think the presentation and the details which were shared by CEB, whatever the negativity which is around outside this hall, but people whoever was listening to CEB, I think we should give that confidence to them. They have a plan in mind. I think we are going to go much faster to achieve the goal of Sri Lanka. And also, this is the first time we have come to BMICH. We have enjoyed the comfort and hospitality of BMICH, thanks to the staffs of BMICH, and also my good friend Kamal, who operates the entire setup. There was a shortage of flex, there is a shortage of things, there is a shortage of power, there is a shortage of diesel, there is a shortage of vehicle, but we made it. So it was a night of whatever you call it. For an event manager, it is not easy. I think we try to maintain as much as possible safety measures and the social distancing. I hope you enjoyed our experience and the food what we served. And if there is anything, any complaint, we are very happy to take that feedback. From this, one last, thanks to the team. I am Mr. Yogesh Musras, Managing Director, for always giving us that free hand to go ahead and change people's mind. So that's what we've been doing it in here. That's what we have done it in Sri Lanka. Thank you, Yogesh. And Mr. Rajneesh Khattar, who's called as Energy Man of India. He knows a lot of people there. So we are trying to do a lot of things. And also, obviously, the other team members, some of them have interacted with you. Some of them are around still working around. Ayer Narayanan, Amita Sarkar, Amit. So you will get to know us more, and we are get to know you also more. We made a lot of new friends. With this, I can say big thank you from Informa Markets in India. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy. I think we are going to go and make Sri Lanka an 100% renewable energy. I think when we meet next year in 2023, we are all going to have an happy smile and we'll have a beer together. Thank you.
We wanted to do it a little earlier, but since all of us are here, and we would like to have a group photograph with everybody over here. Can we do that, please? So we'll just remove this thing from here, and if everybody can come together and we can have one group photograph, please.
thought you...